across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good Monday morning. Welcome to the show. I very much appreciate you joining me. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. You knew all that already. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, it's absolutely fabulous to have your company. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Lots to talk about. And don't forget, if you do miss anything on the show, do go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. And then I can stop saying that at the beginning of every show. Right. As you can imagine, we could be discussing the King and Queen's 4-day visit to the US following that assassination attempt, the third assassination attempt in less than 2 years on Donald Trump. Also, the pressure on the Prime Minister back at home. I bet he was delighted to have people talking about something else in the papers today. He's facing growing pressure over the Mandelson scandal. A vote in Parliament expected to basically send him off for the same sleaze inquiry that Boris Johnson faced over his lies over Partygate. Labour MPs urging the Prime Minister to set a timetable. Just, go. When are you leaving? Facing that trouncing as expected in the polls in the local elections in England, Scottish and Welsh elections on May the 7th, just a very short time away now. Is he going to last? Is he actually going to survive? Because what is, he really is not. On all different fronts, things are getting very high pressured for him. I'd love to hear in particular your thoughts on that. We're also going to talk about the Attorney General, Lord Hermer. Yeah, him again, Chagos, man, that guy. His outrageous attacks on British soldiers after his war crimes case against them was exposed as a lie. £450 an hour he was paid. So he had hundreds of thousands of pounds for a load of cases, despite being warned in advance. These were basically a load of Iraqis who were claiming complete and utter lies about killings and rapes and torture and goodness knows what by British troops who were completely exonerated. He made a load of money out of it anyway, and then he, we'll get to it, slurred outrageously our brave war heroes. So we're going to be talking about that. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on anything and everything that we're talking about today, including, by the way, your healthy life expectancy. Not how long you're going to live, but how long you're going to live a healthy life, because it turns out we're not doing very well on that front. And in particular, if you live in a poor area, I doubt it's your postcode. I'm sure it's down to what you actually do yourself, and yeah, but let's face it, your genes as well. How long you are going to live a healthy life and how long you're going to live an unhealthy life. An awful lot of people are going to be spending pretty much half of their adult life unhealthy. Is that a good way to live? And do we need to do something about it? Should we be interfering in people's personal lives like that? Well, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. We'll get to all of that. But in particular, I want to hear about Keir Starmer, because my question to you is very, very straightforward. Labour MPs, I mean, pretty openly, some of them now, are calling on Keir Starmer to set a date to resign. He's facing a sleaze inquiry. Likely we'll see that vote as early a statement today from the Speaker, and a possible vote very, very soon. We've got a failing economy, and it's not all down to what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz in Iran. We've got that May election bloodbath expected. Can he survive? I want to know, can he survive? Tell us why he can, tell us why he can't, whether you think he will go or not. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1. Standard network rate message. I'm delighted to say joining me today is Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, regular on a Monday now. Morning to you.
Good morning.
Looking very dashing, sir.
Thank you.
Double-breasted suit.
Yes.
He does make an effort for us, doesn't he?
Sometimes.
It's worth looking on the YouTube page alone. No, you come to parties at my place. You dress like that all the time.
I know. I've got a real lack of imagination.
Come for lunch on a Sunday and it's 30 degrees. He turns up like that, honestly.
I can remember, actually, when I was a small boy, about 6 or 7, my grandfather
Did you wear
turned
knickerbockers?
up. No, but I was at a water park in Italy with my siblings, and my grandfather was there, and he was there in a 3-piece tweed suit. It was maybe 30 degrees, so obviously it's deeply ingrained in my psyche.
So anyway, little Lord Fauntleroy, let's talk about some stories. I want to get on, obviously, to Keir Starmer. That's what I want people to call in about today. Again, you get to call in whatever you want to call in. You make the rules on that front. But let's talk about the King and the Queen. They're heading off today. They'll arrive in Washington today. And a 4-day visit marking the 250th anniversary of the Americans making the foolish decision to leave our ruling. It's worked out all right for them, to be fair, on balance. Lots of talk about whether the King's visit should even be cancelled or that in the wake of a third assassination attempt on Donald Trump in less than 2 years. Cole Allen, 31-year-old teacher from California, had previously donated to the Kamala Harris Democrat campaign. That makes him... Donald Trump's called him a crazy guy. That definitely makes you crazy. He sent a manifesto to his family minutes before this attack, hilariously complaining about the security at the Washington Hilton, where this White House Correspondents' Dinner was taking place. Now, the thing about this was there couldn't have been more cameras in the room. It's not possible to have more journalists in the room when an attack takes place. Thankfully, no one has died as an FBI agent has been shot, but thank God for his bulletproof vest. What do you make of this third assassination attempt, and how much of this is down to lax security?
I don't think you can just put it down to lack security, because actually lone wolves occasionally do get through, and we know that even in the most sort of high profile security states, occasionally and we also need to remember here, this was not a successful attack. There have been several attempts. One was very close, obviously, but subsequently since then there have been a number of efforts and a number of more cases of people trying to get to him in the first place, and they've been shut down by security. So I think that's worth pointing out. But I think also, first and foremost, it's important to say that the United States has a history of political violence that we do not have in this country. So every time this happens, we're shocked and we go, good Lord, what's happening in America? But there have been presidents assassinated and shot at before.
Well, this actual hotel, this is where Reagan was shot outside in 1981. And seriously injured.
Yeah, so we should remember that, but undoubtedly there has been an uptick. There are more, certainly that we know of, cases of people attempting to shoot this current president. And I do think that that's downstream directly of the state of political life in the United States, the rhetoric, the attitude. And it's really interesting, isn't it, that actually for all we've been told over the last couple of decades, the dangers of gun ownership in the United States because right-wing militias and all these sorts of things, a bit like in Europe where they say the far right is the danger, it seems to be left-wing people that seem to actually be the bigger danger. There seem to be a lot more attempts against a Republican president than there are against Democrat presidents. So I think that's worth pointing out.
But that's because we're told it's divisive language on the right, blah, 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 blah. And then again, Charlie Kirk blamed for his own assassination when he literally preached the opposite of people of political violence. But this is the thing, Americans always sort of act with utter surprise and shock and horror. Well, this is not what our democracy is about. On the contrary, as you say, a hugely long history of violence being a part of their democracy. After the Butler attack in July 24 at Camp Emily, and the other one before that was September 20. After that, September 24, the golf club again. The guy didn't actually, manage to actually get to Donald Trump. Thank goodness. But certainly what happened at Butler, it was a big wake-up call. Again. This guy was visible on a roof. Other people saw him. They alerted security. It's extraordinary. The big debate here, and it's interesting, I think all of us are going, well, how did this guy just run through this security? He just ran through and then people are shooting. Note, by the way, the only person who got shot was actually an FBI agent. Yes. There's about 6, 7, 8 shots ringing out. There's different accounts about how many shots, but minimum 4. No one actually shot this Cole Allen, the guy who actually was running through. And the thing is, OK, he had a shotgun, he had a handgun, he had a bunch of knives. He apparently had a hit list. It wasn't just Trump, it was a hit list of people. But here's the thing. In fact, they go, well, he didn't make it through. He didn't make it through to the ballroom. The security worked. But he was in the hotel. He'd booked in a couple of days beforehand with a shotgun, no security for that. And the security people said, look, we can't lock down a whole hotel. But hold on a minute. What if he'd had a bomb? If he'd been a suicide, but if he'd been, Salman Abedi at Manchester Arena, oh, well, he's not on the floor, but I tell you what, you can collapse a hotel pretty quickly. And it does seem to me that there's a lot of security show. Yeah. That said, a lot of ex-agents who were very critical about what happened at Butler haven't been critical this time, and I think we have to accept they know more than us. Yeah, I suppose also it's a much bigger kind of issue if you're
dealing with it. Listen, if it's a Donald Trump rally, there's one guy basically who's sort of the focus, the target. If it's a big event with, let's be clear, lots of quite important people, then there are many moving parts. And as you say, the guy had a hit list. So there are, it's the vice president as well. Members of the press, actually very high profile individuals there, not all of whom, if in fact very few of whom you might say are friendly with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very different kind of scenario. And also when it's a big open air event like that, as you say, the criticism is they could see the guy, they should have all the sort of the points covered. If it's a hotel, there are other guests, there's lots of other to and fro, and there is a sort of a sense that actually there are far more moving parts. Yeah. So I do understand it's going to be more difficult.
You can't shut down the whole world. I mean that's reality. Should the King and Queen's trip be cancelled?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that what I would say is this is something that will have been prepared for a very long time in advance. And whatever else you might say about the Trump administration, the security services in the United States, I simply do not believe that they would, whatever the Trump administration wants, I don't think that they would allow a set of circumstances where visiting foreign dignitaries or head of state, the embarrassment that it would cause if something happened, the complete breakdown in relations, that, forget the King and Queen, if it was any sort of head of state.
As you know, I'm no monarchist. I really don't want the King and Queen to come to any harm.
Exactly. Exactly. And as I say, can you imagine, especially with everything that's going on geopolitically at the moment, if something happened like that, I cannot believe that they would allow it.
Donald Trump has hailed the King for being brave. He's big on, they're big friends. So there's apparently been some tweaks. There's going to be security. We're going to talk to Di Davis, former head of Royal Protection. They work, of course, with the US Secret Service on the protection for them. So I'm sure it will all be fine. The King, of course, is supposed to be walking a diplomatic tightrope in terms of British and American relations, and the whole point of having that monarchy above the political fray is to smooth these things over, give a little bit of love. And bear in mind also, again, it's his visit to the American people, not just to Donald Trump. And, these are our friends. We want these people to like us. Yes. We really do. It's in our interest for the Americans. We want them to come here and spend money as tourists. We want them to think that we're worth defending. We want them to be on our side. And I'm very much hoping that the King has a little bit of a mention, gets out a map and explains that the Falklands are British. They're not called the Malvinas, and they're British.
You know where the Malvinas actually comes from? The word Malvinas. It's not even a Spanish word. It's from French. It means San Malo. It means people from San Malo.
Okay.
Just on that subject, it's the complete fantasy of Argentina having any kind of claim. There is literally another European country that has a claim before they do.
I did a trip to Argentina about 20-odd years ago, and every time there was a map with Malvinas on, I just went up and crossed it out and wrote Falklands.
It's great fun, though. It's great fun when this comes up every few days. You get to have a real good time with the Argentines because they have no sense of humour at all, it turns out.
Great stakes, though.
Hey,
can
guys.
I say? Anyway, Keir Starmer, your friend and mine. God, we love him. Do you know what, though? We might not have him around for very long. Yeah? We might not have him around, so maybe we should appreciate him a bit more. Sorry. I don't know what happened then. I'm obviously still drunk from all the Vino Verde I've been drinking in Lisbon over the weekend. Keir Starmer is speaking in Lancashire right now. Keep him, Lancashire. He's yours now. No, this is like pass the parcel. You've got the Prime Minister. You keep him. We don't want him back. But he's setting out his plans to crack down on shoplifting, which of course he won't do. Apparently, shoplifting is a very difficult thing to tackle. We'll talk about it a bit later with a copper. It's not difficult to tackle. If you just arrest the people who commit the shoplifting, you put them in prison, they can't shoplift anymore. I know, I'm an absolute bloody genius, aren't I? I don't know how I came up with this, but it took years of study. I mean, it's really not... I mean, you can cut off their hands as well. That also works.
No, Julia.
Just saying.
No, Julia,
anyway,
don't you understand? This is a violation of their human rights. They are the victims of this situation. Life has been mean to them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be stealing all of these goods.
Life's been mean to them. Well, most of them around my way. The life seems to have been mean to them as they were in their organised Romanian criminal gang. Because that seems to be all the people doing the shoplifting around my way. But anyway, let's talk about Keir Starmer. There's so much going on in the next couple of days. Parliament is going to be prorogued. We all remember the prorogue word, don't we, from 2019. Basically, so that Prime Minister doesn't have to do another PMQs on Wednesday. This is in time for the local elections in England, the Scottish elections and Welsh elections on May the 7th. We could get the results of those over the 8th and the 9th. Voting. They're not doing the counting overnight. The counting is going to be the next morning onwards. And then we've got Parliament that is going to open for the King's speech on the Wednesday, the 13th. And then basically...
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. Let's talk more about that Trump assassination attempt, third in less than 2 years at the weekend at that Washington Correspondents' Dinner. And of course, the King and the Queen travelling over to Washington today after, well, quite a lot of conversations with the Secret Service over the weekend about their security. Let's talk to Di Davies, former head of Royal Protection right now. Good morning to you, Di.
Hello, lovely to be back with you, Julia.
Lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Well, of course, I mean, we're all very, very shocked by what happened at the weekend at that Washington Correspondents' Dinner. Third attempt in 2 years. Just before we talk about the royals, looking at that as somebody, you know, who's dealt with, you know, keeping VIPs, you know, alive, basically, it's your job every day. What did you make of the security at this hotel and this ballroom? Because a lot of people go, well, how did this guy with guns and knives manage to get through 2 security cordons? And, you know, even when the security men, the FBI and the security service was shooting, not a single one of their shots hit him, bizarrely. Do you think this was a security fail, or the fact that they got him, was it a security success?
Well, you ask a number of questions there. I was as shocked as everyone else that somebody could get within several hundred yards of the president and indeed his whole team. Every single one there was a VIP in its own right. Each had his own protection team, and sometimes too many cooks can spoil the broth. I looked at a wide variety. The first one, how did he pass the first outer security in carrying firearms into the hotel? Clearly, that's something that needs looking at. But more importantly, on that grainy video, we all saw that he was able to sprint past 5 or 6, one of them looking away at the time. And afterwards, I was on a program and an ex-Secret Service chap said it was textbook. Well, if that's a textbook, I'm a sugar plum, you know what?
Yes, I didn't, I mean, I'm not an expert. It didn't look textbook to me. The fact, surely a man running through that security barrier should just be, there should be people watching that security barrier to stop them getting to the next stage.
Absolutely. And he said it was like a castle. It was like a castle door. Well, again, they should, my definition of a door is something that you can't get through easily. And again, if that was their outer security from the ballroom, then some questions need to be asked. There should be a physical barrier there that they open and close to allow somebody. The second thing I was worried about is the evacuation procedure.
Yeah.
Again, it looked very crowded. One of the key things when you plan an event is how do you get out of it? How do you get your principals out of it? And it seemed to me there weren't that many exit strategies, and so that gave me concern. So to sum it up, I think there needs and was, and I hope, a review of who was in charge of security, what planning went into it, what audit trail of that planning, because there are questions I certainly would be asking if I now was reviewing it. And
in terms of the Royal Protection back home, the King and Queen flying off today to Washington on that 4-day trip to mark the 250th anniversary of the independence of the United States. We know there's been conversations, obviously, since that event with the security detail about maybe a few little changes here and there to tighten security. What sort of things, if you were still in that job, would you be asking, would you be demanding?
Well, I'd have the protection team there. They're the experts. They go with the royals, the King's police officer, the Queen's police officer. They would have been there ahead, or certainly part of the team. And clearly, they work well normally with the Secret Service. But clearly, they would be looking again at any vantage points, how, and hopefully all of this would have been worked out well ahead anyway. But you'd go over the planning, you'd go over the structure, and you'd certainly be looking at where they would be crowd-facing, as they call, in Virginia and in New York. And I seem to have lost you. No, hello, are you still there?
Yeah, we've still got you,
yeah. Sorry, my screen went blank for some reason. But anyway, so those are the kinds of questions, and I'd be looking again as a no firearms zone, and I would be spreading it out. And I'd be actually looking at the lessons of history. and certainly translating my knowledge of attacks on presidents, which surely they know. But I know,
including at this very hotel, 1981, Ronald Reagan.
1981, they call it Hinckley Towers. So yes, you'd be looking at, and again, I say, and I get no pleasure from saying it, but there are so many questions. And for people to come out and say that was a success, it's beyond me anyway.
Yeah, well, especially, I mean, as someone who knows nothing about this, is this skill, I was looking at going, hold on a minute, this seems to me to be almost up there with what happened in Butler back in July 24 when the president was campaigning, where, the campaign rally, there it was, the sniper on a roof in plain daylight, and no one said anything. I mean, people were actually going, hey, there's a guy on the roof. And the authorities did nothing. This obviously not as bad because no one actually got shot dead. I mean, the only person who got shot was by this young man, Cole Allen, a 31-year-old teacher from California. Here's the thing, though. In America in particular, where there are so many guns, where it is legal to own guns, can you ever really be, unless the president or did the king and queen on the visit, unless they are behind bulletproof screens at all times, unless people are vetted, they are never out in the open air, can you ever be 100% certain?
No, you can't. And if you learn the lessons of history, as I do and lecture on, no, you can't be. But you can try and eliminate as many. And that takes planning, it takes coordination, and it takes common sense. And, that's the best word in the English language, apart from reasonable. Yep. Use your common sense, use your experience, and don't be afraid to challenge. Challenge experts, I always say, because sometimes even experts get it wrong.
Is there also a gut feeling? One of the things I've always said to, especially young people, teenage girls, and things, go with your gut instinct. You're walking down the street and you just think, it just doesn't feel right, or you're not sure about somebody, and they haven't done anything. You've got gut instinct for a reason. It's an animal instinct, and you should always go with it. Sod anyone else's feelings. Is there, as a trained royal protection officer, are there moments when you have a gut instinct that something's not right?
100%. And 27 years as a street cop, which is very rare these days for a senior officer to have done all the way up on the streets.
You should have just been at university for 3 years. You'd learned so much more. Ha, ha, ha.
Well, that's the problem these days, that many of our leaders simply don't have that street experience where you learn that instinct. And you can't write it in a book. I used to do Notting Hill Carnival as a commander, and I'm telling you, instinct kept a lot of people alive because you sensed this is getting bad, this is overcrowding, how do we stop it, etc., etc. You don't learn that in a book. You don't learn it at police college. You learn it by being on the streets, and that's where we're sorely lacking these days in so many leader elements, in my opinion.
I completely agree with you. Just finally, I mean, I didn't remember this until I read it this morning about the time where there was an attempt on the life of King Charles, Prince Charles as he was then, and he just sort of very calmly fiddled with his cufflinks. And we've had the now ambassador to the US saying, this trip is going ahead and it's keep calm and carry on. In your experience, do the royals, are they fearful? Are they genuinely fearful that they could face an attempted assassination or an actual assassination?
In my knowledge and my interchange with the teams, no, they've lived with protection. Another time, I'd love to do a program with you about how many attacks there have been on the British and foreign royals and indeed presidents. It's a fascinating subject, but we need an hour or two.
Yeah, there have been a lot more than people think. So appreciate you, Geordie. It's always good to get your expertise and your view. Di Davies, former head of Royal Protection there. Benedict Spence. It's interesting because we were saying, look, we're not experts in this, but it didn't look like it was textbook, and I'm very glad that someone who does know his stuff says, no, it doesn't look like that to me either.
Yeah, slightly reassuring, actually, that it's just not just us that comes to that conclusion. I tell you what, though, that would be an interesting hour-long conversation
to
talk about.
For that.
I think that if somebody should make that special happen. Set aside an hour, stick it on YouTube. That would be greatly
Someone
entertaining.
That out. People, they organise things here.
There are people that do that.
People who
You've
do
got
that.
a man for
They're
that.
not my people. They're other people's people. We're going to talk to another people's people up next. We're going to talk to the brilliant Hamish de Bretton Gordon about what the heck is going on with Lord Hermer when it comes to the prosecutions of outrageous prosecutions of not just soldiers who served in Iraq, but also those in Northern Ireland. He is up next. You do not want to miss this. This is Talk.
handover briefing I was getting as I arrived at post was what I felt was a generally dismissive attitude to his vetting clearance. The focus was on getting Mandelson out to Washington quickly. Despite this atmosphere, an atmosphere of pressure, the department completed developed vetting to the normal high standard. Because the vetting process is not there to determine fitness for office or reputational risk, it's there to protect national security.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 10:49 is the time. Let's talk once again about how our Attorney General has less than no respect for the men and women who serve on the front line. Let's talk to someone who has done very much that, served on the front line. Hamish Breton-Gordon, OBE, former British Army Colonel. Very good morning to you, Hamish.
Good morning. Thanks very much for having me,
Well,
Julia.
thank you for joining us. I have to say, I mean, I'm going to try. We've got to try not to spit as we say this. We've got a vote in the House of Commons involving the Northern Ireland Troubles Bill, and this is about basically veterans. I mean, decades on, often after having already faced charges many times and found in. Once again facing what Kemi Badenoch is calling a vindictive Northern Ireland Troubles Bill, which means they could once again more court cases against them again and again. But this comes after the extraordinary revelation, the Telegraph today, that Lord Hermer, our Attorney General, Mr. Human Rights, Mr. I know better than everyone else, I'm such a good guy. He has said the most extraordinary thing about British soldiers. He wrote an email, a message after key evidence emerged, a public inquiry that cost us 31 million quid, our taxes, which basically looked into all of these claims about British troops torturing and executing civilians in southern Iraq. And the £31 million inquiry concluded the allegations were deliberate lies driven by ingrained hostility towards the British Army, despite the fact that actually the lawyers representing on a no-win, no-fee basis a lot of these people making these claims against our soldiers were warned that these are made-up claims, there's no evidence for this, these people have lied before, blah, blah. They carried on with these cases. And extraordinary, Keir Starmer's closest cabinet ally, as he is, Lord Hermer, he sent a message telling human rights lawyers that they had done more good for society than the decorated soldiers they had falsely accused of murder and torture. You, as a decorated soldier, how do you feel about that?
Well, Julia, as you can imagine, like a lot of other veterans, I find it absolutely extraordinary. It all refers back to 2004, an event called the Battle of Danny Boy in a place called Alamara, north of Basra. I was actually in Basra at the time, at the Basra station. I wasn't up at Alamara, so I remember it sort of going on. And as you say, these vexatious claims that British troops had murdered innocent Iraqis. We found out from the Board of Inquiry and subsequently that a lot of the people that Lord Hamer was supporting were actually part of the Mahdi army, followers of Muqtada al-Sadr, who's a jihadist terrorist leader and organisation responsible for the deaths of hundreds of British soldiers.
You mean jihadists who'd been fighting the British? They'd lied about the British army. I mean, I'm as shocked as you are, Hamish.
Well, I think we all are, and the fact that he is in such an important position legally, and the fact that, as you said, our Northern Ireland veterans are being hounded. And let's not forget all the claims against the SAS and the SBS in Afghanistan at the moment. And my dear friend Richard Williams, who commanded 22 SAS, again writing in the Telegraph yesterday, saying what an impact it was having on morale of our special forces. And a lot of them
they're downing their weapons. They're saying, I'm leaving.
Well, at the very, very time where threats are all around us and we need, the best and the bravest to defend us. So when the leadership are not doing it, it really has an impact on morale.
And we're not talking about clear cases. And look, bad things happen in war. And people make mistakes, and sometimes some individuals do bad things. We're not pretending that the British Army, like any other army in the world, is perfect. Of course not. But one of the things I've been really impressed by over the years is when there have been cases where there have been, what appears to be clear evidence of war crimes taking place, how much from the lowest level rank to the highest level rank, British soldiers are very, no, that's not us. You don't do that in our name. We want that punished. Feel very strongly about doing the right thing. I understand the British Army has really good reputation on the ground. A lot of the time we're doing work where we're trying to, befriend people, being, trying to win hearts and minds. And so for these allegations to happen against men, and it's largely men, isn't it, who are on the battle lines, often in that time serving far too many tours of duty in quick succession, under huge pressure, seeing their comrades blown up in front of them on a daily basis, and dealing with that pressure, literally fearing for their lives every day. And then this guy in his £10,000 suit comes along, sitting at a desk, and decides, yeah, let's see if we can make some money out of some people who, we've been told they're probably telling lies. They're a bit dodgy, but hey, let's go for it anyway. This is treasonous.
All we ask for as soldiers is to be treated fairly. And I absolutely agree. I've commanded soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the letter of the law is absolutely what we try and follow. But the battlefield is very different from the streets of London.
Yeah.
And it's very easy sat back in Westminster and Whitehall, Lord Hamer and others, making these decisions when actually it's really difficult, and we do our very best. But, unfortunately, when people are trying to kill you, you have to try and survive and make forward.
And shoot first and ask questions later, because you're trying to protect yourself and others' lives often. Again, this is the thing. I think it's just so easy for people to sit in judgment. And again, even where mistakes are made, we should still, I feel the same way about, Metropolitan Police opening fire on gangsters, even where mistakes are made. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt unless there's clear evidence not. In terms of what's happening in Northern Ireland, Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, she's accused Keir Starmer of what she calls a vindictive plan to pursue veterans through the courts. There's a vote today, ahead of Parliament being provoked tomorrow, basically, and it's the Northern Ireland Troubles Bill, and basically former soldiers are going to be facing yet more court cases accusing them of wrongdoing. The thing that a lot of us find so frustrating about this is, yes, of course, people want justice, things that happened in the past, but one of the points of the Good Friday Agreement was stop, just stop. Line in the sand. On the runs were able to come back to their families. People were freed from prison. There will be no more prosecution. We would just put a line in the sand and we move on and go to the future. But the line in the sand is still there if you were in the IRA and you blew people up, or you kneecapped people, you shot people in the head, innocent people in the head. But our soldiers are still being pursued. That can't be right.
No, you're absolutely right. And as you say, it doesn't apply to IRA terrorists who would have killed British soldiers. I think what is really telling is that Al Kearns, the defence minister, who I respect absolutely to the letter of the law, and he is an special forces soldier himself.
He's been there.
He is not voting. I'm sure there's lots of stuff coming out of Labour headquarters why he's not voting.
He's conveniently on a foreign trip.
But I expect he cannot bring himself to do it. And let's hope a lot of other Labour politicians also look for their moral compass and don't support this bill. We should go back to the old one where it's an amnesty, it was fair for all, and then move forward. Yeah,
and I can understand why an amnesty, if your family has been wronged, you've lost a loved one, or you've been, kneecapped or shot, and you feel, you were hard done by. I can understand how frustrating it is, but there was a reason for it. There was a reason for Northern Ireland to move on, to try and put the troubles behind. And this is being dredged up again and again. But some of these soldiers, it's like the third or fourth time.
Well, that's right. And I think we learned from all the Phil Shiner, the lawyer who was about the Iraqi sort of instance.
Who's dodgy, who's faced criminal charges and who worked with Keir Starmer and Lord Hermer.
Absolutely. Keep going over this and everything else. At the end of the day, British soldiers follow the Geneva Conventions and do absolutely the best we can. Yeah. The enemy doesn't. And I might say this is a place where perhaps we could look towards the American forces. You don't hear anybody in the States being persecuted, any soldier, as our soldiers has been doing. Whatever we think about them, I think in this case, they've got it absolutely right. And the nation, the American nation, is absolutely fully behind their forces. Absolutely. And I think the majority of the British people, vast majority, are absolutely behind the military. It's just some of these dodgy politicians who are, who might have tried to make money in the past and now are perhaps trying to divert from other things that they should be getting on with to get the country back on its feet again.
Indeed. Hamish de Bretton-Gordon, thank you very much indeed. Former British Army Colonel himself, Benedict Spence, been echoing what we've been saying. I wonder with a lot of, again, this human rights lawyers, these sort of Islington, dinner party set of people who are running our government now. Again, they've not fought in the armed services. They don't know anyone who's fought in the armed services. They rather despise these people because, again, like Lord Hermer, they think that, being a lawyer is a far more important job in the world, despite the fact that, of course, there are no human rights without a lawyer, without soldiers,
a military.
The military is what keeps our country able to give you human rights. There are no human rights, don't exist.
Yeah.
It's just the rule of the strong. That's what you need the military for. So his whole world doesn't exist without it. But I wonder, they think this isn't a vote winner. Well, actually, you know what? Be surprised how many ordinary people who also don't know anyone in the military who feel strongly.
I tell you what, at the same time that we're being told Britain needs to rearm and that there needs to be a recruitment drive and that people should prepare themselves for that situation, you cannot have an Attorney General who has been discovered to have said these things, whatever the circumstances.
It's not even just that he said it; he thinks it.
Yeah.
I don't
He's
know
given
how
the game
you can.
away.
I don't know how you can think it. At the end of the day, mate, your job was able to disappear during lockdown, and their jobs won't because we still needed the military. There's a bit of a giveaway of whether you need it or not, mate. So much more to talk about. I'd love to hear your thoughts, whether it's about Trump, Keir Starmer, or Lord Hermer. Give us a call. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning. Welcome back to the show. Fast approaching 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, watching on YouTube, or your connected device, great to have your company. Lots and lots to talk about. A lot of you getting in touch. Lord Hermer seems to have really set the world alight today. And I just... just so appalled by his absurd comments about basically human rights lawyers basically do more for the country, have made a bigger contribution than the men and women who serve on the front lines. Insulting British war heroes. Great look from the Attorney General, the man who made a fortune basically pursuing and persecuting our British war heroes in Iraq, even though they were warned quite a long way before. A lot of these cases even carried on, through the processes, that actually these were dodgy cases brought by, as we've just been hearing from Hamish de Bretton Gordon, basically a load of Iraqi Islamists who were trying it on. Well, it looks like Lord Herman was trying it on as well, but love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Lots to talk about, including, of course, that extraordinary Trump assassination attempt, third in less than 2 years. Was it a security triumph? Because no one got hurt apart from one security detail, and thank goodness he was wearing a bulletproof vest. Or, having spoken to the former head of Royal Protection here, Di Davies, in the last half hour, was actually a big fail, because how the hell did this guy get in through the second security cordon and get so close to that ballroom before he was stopped? Plus, the pressure on the Prime Minister growing every single day over that Mandelson scandal. Labour MPs are urging the PM to set out a timetable for his departure. We've got a likely vote in Parliament tomorrow about whether there should be a parliamentary sleaze investigation as to whether the Prime Minister has lied. We've got, his former Chief of Staff and a former senior figure at the Foreign Office. They're going to be giving evidence to the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Could be his box office, probably even more than Sir Ollie Robbins, the former boss of the Foreign Office, sacked over the Mandelson vetting scandal last week. And, of course, we've got these local elections in England. We've got the Scottish and Welsh elections all on May the 7th. Expected to see an absolute trouncing for Labour. So I want to know from you in particular, do you think that Keir Starmer can survive? A lot of people are saying that actually there's a lot of pressure on him, but actually there's, the other people who want the job aren't ready to go yet. The Angela Rayner's HMRC problems over unpaid stamp duty on that flat in Brighton. Andy Burnham's not even in Parliament yet. No one sane wants Ed Miliband apart from the party membership. Is anyone else ready? Wes Streeting, too much for Blairite. He was mates with Mandelson as well. So they're not quite ready to go. Do you think the Prime Minister will limp on, or do you think this combination of events is now exposing the absolute chaos at the heart of this government and he's got to go? I want to hear your thoughts and your thoughts on the King and Queen's 4-day visit that starts today in Washington to arriving in the US following that assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Will they be safe on that visit? Should the visit still have gone ahead? Also, we're going to discuss the extraordinary number of councils in this country that, for some bizarre reason, utterly inexplicable to every sane person, certainly everyone who gets up every morning and pays tax, to give discounts to things like spa days and even renting a beach hut to welfare claimants. I absolutely kid you not. How this is allowed to happen is beyond me. I am incandescent about this story. We're going to talk about that a bit later, and also we're going to talk about health, like your healthy life expectancy as well. Basically, you're looking at about a 20-year difference between the poorest areas and the richest areas in terms of how long you're going to live, not just your life, but a healthy life without serious ill health. Is it down to poor housing? That's what has been claimed by this report, or is it down to people's personal life choices? We'll talk about all of that. Joining me, I'm delighted to say, for all the chat today is Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
I was complimenting you earlier on your dashing suit today.
Do it again.
Are you not walking around wearing your marathon? I ran the marathon medal.
This is how I ran the
half
marathon.
the people on the tube this morning were wearing.
Yes, this is
If
exactly
you ran a
how I
marathon, you would do it in a double-breasted suit.
I would. It would be a magnificent sight. Everybody should do it. It's much more dignified than wearing lycra. I can tell you that for nothing.
Okay, big up to, we've got a sub 2-hour marathon, well played. More importantly...
What was that? Big up?
Big up.
Big
well
up.
done.
Down with the kids.
This is terrible. I don't really care.
Don't you?
No, is that terrible?
I don't really...
Oh,
what?
I know those charity guys. He wasn't running for charity.
I have to say, I think there's something particularly magnificent about... Basically, the entire nation of Kenya is set up to go, how can we run at insanely fast speeds that actually in the modern era is of no use to anybody? Because you have public transport, you have got cars, you've got everything, you don't need to do that. And they go, do you know what, though? I'm going to do it anyway. And I kind of sit there and I go, good for you.
I admire the human achievement, all credit to him, but also the achievement of whichever trainer company had come up with a trainer that weighs less than my glasses. No, I'd say big up though to Alicia on our team. It's her 27th birthday today, so she's having, I'm hoping right now, a well-earned lie-in, and she ran her first marathon yesterday. 4 hours and 42 minutes, all credit to her. I'd like to say that the best thing about it is she will no longer talk about running a marathon.
Wow, that Kenyan smoked her. What a loser.
Wow. Say,
I'm only saying that because she's not here today, and she will hit me.
Because Benedict will no longer be on the show, and Alicia will make sure of that.
I would never say that
girl.
if she were here.
We're very, very, very proud of her, and she ran for charity. Of course she did, everyone does. We sponsored her, we just told her she wasn't allowed to talk about it a lot. Anyway, honestly, I wrote my usual sarky tweet about it yesterday, going, well, good luck to everybody who knows someone running the marathon, now that they're going to finish running the marathon, not talk about running the marathon. Oh, the people who reply, it's for charity, it's for... Oh,
You've been writing quite a lot of sarky tweets at the moment. You wrote one about saints not existing. I thought, well, you can never go to Italy again without being lynched. I mean, good for you.
I wasn't sarky. That was I was pointing out facts.
Well, technically, it's not true. There are saints because the church says they are. Whether or not you believe that they do the things they claim to is a secondary thing. But
I feel we've digressed from the main stories in the papers.
I'm trying to save you from a lynching by nonnas. That's what I'm trying to do.
I don't care. I love getting grief on social media. It makes me laugh. We're going to talk about Trump first of all. That assassination attempt, third attempt in 2 years. Remember, I mean, Butler got rather too close, July 24. I mean, actually got shot in the air. There's still conspiracy theorists about that. No, he was shot. Someone else actually died. People keep forgetting that. Someone died. That was a absolutely outrageous breach. I would say the one a few months later at the golf club in West Palm Beach, that, I mean, to be fair, they got the guy before Donald Trump even made it to that hole where he could have been shot at. So that was a success. They're claiming this is a great success. This guy runs through, I mean, why are you letting him run through the security cordon? He's got a shotgun, he's got a handgun, he's got a whole bunch of knives. OK, he didn't have an AK-47 and he wasn't spraying everybody. Well, thank God, some 31-year-old lefty teacher from California, Cole Allen, by all accounts, you know, was it a whack job? I do love Donald Trump when he says he's just a whack job. I mean, you know, yeah, he is. People who try and shoot people because they don't agree with their politics are whack jobs. Sent the usual, sent a manifesto to his family before the attack. Weirdly, and it shouldn't be hilarious, but thankfully nobody died. He was complaining about the lack of security. He checked into the hotel with a gun a couple of days earlier. He was able to get this close. They're saying, look, he didn't get into the ballroom. It was fine. But what amazes me is that all these FBI agents, all the security detail, they're all firing. You can hear a range of bullets, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bullets being fired. Not a single one of them hit this guy.
Yeah.
Again, was he the Kenyan winner? Was he Sebastian Saul running so fast the bullets couldn't hit him? No.
No, the Kenyan runner would have succeeded in what he was doing because that guy's focused. This is like if Wes Anderson designed a sort of a presidential assassination attempt. The guy runs through, everybody looks at each other, they all start firing. It's farcical. It's, you know, and
it was a bit farcical.
Then you've got a clown at the middle of it all going, he's a whack job. You know, honestly, the whole thing, if it wasn't so serious, would probably be quite funny because you're talking about a nation that prides itself on gun ownership and on the effectiveness of its security forces. Nobody can hit a thing, it turns out. You know, this is a bit farcical, but the key thing is, it didn't end in tragedy. Very easily could have ended in tragedy, given how many people were just in that ballroom. And he was not simply going after just Donald Trump. He had a list of people that he was going to go after.
But here's the thing, again, even I would know, and I do not plan assassination attempts, not very often. But
that's
even
exactly
I would
what
know.
somebody would say.
Yeah, they would say.
Not me,
and we're not making light of it, because this is very, very serious, but I do think, you know, these things need to be prevented.
Yeah.
But if you're planning on killing more than one person, you probably do need a gun that can spray.
Fire more than
rather
once,
than... Yeah. And we've seen some of the horrific... Remember was it Vegas or something?
Oh, yes.
The one where the guy was in the top of a tower block and he literally sprayed a whole country and western event. I mean, he took out dozens and dozens. I mean, it's absolutely horrific. And they can get those weapons there. But again, what is fascinating is how often, again and again and again, the political violence in America is on the left.
Yeah.
It's on the left.
Without meaning to read too much into the motives, one does wonder, therefore, given the sort of the really calculated nature of the Las Vegas shooting, where the key was very much to kill as many people as possible in a very meticulous way, one almost wonders if an incident like this, where the guy's literally complaining about the lack of security, is it more an attempt at martyrdom, maybe? Is that, in fact, the motivation if you've not come in fully prepared prepared, and you're going, why have I not been
I'm assuming
stopped?
after the first shot, someone else in the ship.
You're sort of assuming that he would have been shot
one of the
himself.
interesting things, given the 4,000 million journalists who were claiming to be in the room, only held 2,000. I'm sure I've heard more than 2,000 accounts from journalists who were there in their black tie, who were basically talking about how, they were at the centre of this thing. You were lying under your table, with all due respect. It didn't happen in the room you were even in. But they're going to be dining out on this for many years. I'm just glad everyone's okay. But this idea that there's how could anyone get in? How could this happen? You think, well, because there are an awful lot of nutty people, and an awful lot of these people are able to get guns, and if they really want to, as we see, security. Look, we've seen again and again security in this country, terror attacks, Manchester Arena, whatever. People who are determined can do this.
Yeah, our security services are remarkably good at stopping. The number of attacks that people do not know about that do get stopped, we're actually quite good.
And
but
they
we
don't get the credit for it.
Yeah, but they don't. But we also shouldn't have to put up with the amount of threats that we get, given the sort of the ideologies that we're talking about, and as much as everybody insists it's the far right, we all know that it's not.
It needs to be a lot of rounding up.
Yeah, and in the United States, we're not even just talking about mainly being perpetrated by Islamists, which is what happens in this country. In the United States, a lot of these are lone wolves who have been radicalised by a certain sort of prism of politics, and in particular, the person of Donald Trump. And it's very interesting, of course, how for years and years and years we were told by left-wing academics, journalists, speech is violence, and this is what justifies it. And it turns out that they are an entire political wing of very easily triggered people because they hear something they don't like and they pick up a gun. And do you know where that doesn't happen? The right in the United States does not go around shooting people because you say mean things about the president. If they did, there'd have been a lot more politically motivated mass shootings the other way.
The left really needs to get... I mean, look, you got the far right, you got the neo-Nazis and all that. Absolutely.
Oh, you get that everywhere.
Yeah, around that lot. No problem with that at all. But the normalisation of violence on the left, the comedians joking about assassinating Trump. Okay, I don't like Keir Starmer. I didn't like Kamala Harris. I would never ever even joke about killing you. I think that's really, I think that's weird that they normalise it as, but it's fine, it's different. And in some way, but they're so divisive that they justify it.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, divisive. But by definition, they're not that divided. I mean, Donald Trump is no more divisive than Barack Obama on that. It says if you get elected president, you've got the majority support. That's the end of the day.
The violence that broke out in the aftermath of, was it George Floyd's death as well in the United States, and the number of people that were actively justifying it, which on the one hand is incredibly patronising.
Largely peaceful protest.
Yeah.
Literally.
As fire is going on in the background. And
buildings and cars on fire.
The way it was nothing else. It was incredibly patronising. The way that it was predominantly white broadcasters saying this is justified, as if the black community in the United States was just ready to blow at any moment. And you're sat there thinking, if you spoke about any other group like that, you'd think that's a bit racist.
No, it's very, very...
just a little bit.
The low expectations, the racism of low expectations of the white liberal class. Exactly. Well, look, King and Queen are on their way today to Washington. They're going to be a state visit with Donald Trump. There was a lot of people saying that, it shouldn't, all the lefties, this shouldn't happen. A, because, Donald Trump's been nasty about us. B, then there was the whole sort of the battle over the Strait of Hormuz and whether or not we should be involved in what's going on with Iran. Chagos Islands, this internal White House document suggesting that the Americans won't back us on Falklands. Well, you didn't sodding back us in 82 either. So that said, we don't have the ability to defend the Falklands. The Falklands will only be British while we have the ability to maintain them as British, which is why we need our defence forces built up. But also now this security risk. I mean, to a certain extent, there was always a security risk. It seems that it's going to go ahead. Should there be any question about whether or not the King or Queen should go on any of those grounds? No, because the King, A, is not just the King of England, he's also the head of state of Canada. United Kingdom.
Well, he's depending. Well, you might have something to say about that, but I'm more sort of talking about the fact that also he's the king of a country that neighbours the United States. So it wouldn't just be on our behalf, it would be that as well. But also, he's not going to visit Donald Trump, he's going to visit the people of the United States. And actually, broadly, a lot of them are still, I think, pretty pro-us, broadly. I'm not saying that, do anything for us, but they quite like us fundamentally on both sides of the political divide. We need to remember that a lot of Republicans as well. Yeah,
it's really in our interest, the American people, to like us if we need a defence, if we need backup,
and for us not
we,
to be.
And we want them to come as tourists. Come to our country. You're really welcome here.
Not even as tourists or anything like that. We want them to invest in our country. We do want them to look beyond the Trump presidents, and we don't want them to look at us as petty as him, ultimately, because he's only going to be president for another couple of years. Although, of course, you might have something to say about that, but that's the idea anyway.
Yeah.
And we don't want it to be that they look at us and go, wow, aren't they a petty bunch, that Donald Trump was mean to them and they went off in a huff. No, they think that we have a little bit more dignity than that, and I would like to think that's true.
And this is what a royal family is good for, in terms of that being above politics and all of that. Let's talk about not being above politics. Let's talk about being right there in the dirt, in the mud. Keir Starmer is certainly there. Things he's facing in the next few weeks, right? Got Labour MPs apparently demanding that Prime Minister sets a timetable for him to go. Like, we've got the local elections in England, Welsh Assembly elections, Scottish Parliament elections, all of which are going to be a disaster for Labour unless the polls are completely wrong. It's always a possibility. I'm not telling anyone how to vote, but an awful lot of parts of this country are going to get a vote, and it's going to be bad. We've got a whole load of plotting going on by the likes of Angela Rayner. We've got Andy Burnham trying to get back into Parliament. We've got Ed Miliband. We've got a load of Yvette Cooper, sweetheart. Self-knowledge. Well, I would say the same for Angie, but at least Angie and Ed Miliband have got some actual public support. So I'm always fascinated by people who've got no self-knowledge, like me going, but I barely chat, I barely talk, I wear no makeup. I mean, self-knowledge, people, know about yourself. We've got the Tories planning to force a vote from the Speaker, basically, to refer the Prime Minister to the Commons Privileges Committee over basically lying to Parliament, which he has done repeatedly over the Mandelson appointment. Tomorrow we have got... Oh, by the way, and he apparently, his infinite wisdom and his... Well, we don't know if he's got a chief of staff yet. Who has he got? Acting chiefs of staff. They seem to think that he's going to make it into like a vote of confidence, so telling MPs, no, you mustn't vote for this. Good luck with that, Keir Starmer. They may see this as an opportunity to get rid of him. We've got his former Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, who, Mr. Oh, my phone was stolen, how terribly convenient. He also the man who said to the Foreign Office, just effing approve him over the Mandelson appointment, despite not having the vetting, or having the vetting even started. He's going to be forced to give evidence to the Foreign Affairs Select Committee tomorrow. Again, it's quasi-judicial. You are not allowed to lie on a technicality. If you lie to a Select Committee in the Commons, you could face life imprisonment. I kid you not. After him, Sir Philip Barton. Who's he? He is the former head of the Foreign Office, the one who basically mysteriously resigned early, 8 months before he was due to go, after being told by Morgan McSweeney, just effing approve him, before Sir Ollie Robbins, now sacked over the Mandelson affair, gives evidence. I've got a funny feeling this is going to be box office stuff tomorrow morning. Yeah. We've got all of that going on. Quite by coincidence, also today, 2 Ukrainian men and a Romanian are appearing at the Old Bailey on day one of their trial over a series of arson attacks on the Prime Minister's former homes and his car back in May 2025. Quite a busy week for the PM. Does he survive it?
I think he survives it, because I think actually that there are far too many people in the party are too timid to get rid of him just now. I think that they are beginning to understand that they need to get rid of him in the near term, but I do think that they're going to wait until the local elections are done so that he can carry the can for that. I mean, it's funny actually, you're talking about him potentially whipping MPs not to vote for an inquiry. It's a bit like telling the school bully, don't tickle me because I'll wet myself in front of everyone.
Got horrible insight into Benedict's school days there.
Or maybe I was the bully, who knows. Or perhaps, let's not think about Keir Starmer being tickled and doing that. That's the even worse situation. But the point is, this is an opportunity for MPs to inflict some real pain on him, especially if they did feel a little bit too timid about actually sort of getting rid of him right now. OK, fine, but you could draw out that pain quite a bit. And let's be clear, he's not popular amongst a lot of his backbenchers. He doesn't even know half of them.
He just wore a suit.
Yeah.
So he wore a suit.
And
he
the
pretended to be
red
lefty.
rosette. Yeah.
What I love is absolutely fascinating. He's done an interview yesterday and he vowed to stay on as Prime Minister until 2030. So he basically says he's going to fight the 2030 election. Of course, every cabinet minister gets asked, is he going to be fighting the next election? They go, he's going to be up. They don't. Nobody thinks that Keir Starmer, apart from maybe Keir Starmer, thinks that Keir Starmer is... Mrs. Starmer, Lady Starmer, doesn't think he's running in that election 2029, but he reckons he's going to be Prime Minister into the 2030s. Mate, if you run, you ain't going to win it. I imagine that, OK, if there was a bomb that took out everyone else in the country, you could be Prime Minister. That's the only scenario in which you're still left. Think about MPs. They're not loyal to anybody who isn't who's likely to put them out of a job and out of a home. They've got mortgages. A lot of these people are earning, 90 odd grand a year. They've got the expenses. These guys have never earned this much money. A few of the human rights lawyers, most of them.
Yes, it's a step down for them.
This is as good as it gets for them in life. They are not going to stick with the Prime Minister, who is basically a loser.
And they're going to look at actually the fate that befell a lot of former Tory MPs, where once upon a time those people would have thought maybe there's going to be a position for me on the board of this, that, the other organisation, and increasingly in British politics people go, actually, having you on this is a bit of a liability, because actually being a former MP, rightly I would say, especially if you've failed as an MP, is it's not an endorsement, as you say, especially for career politicians, which, especially in the Labour Party, a huge number of people got in at the grassroots, at the bottom. They joined their local party, they joined at university, they did it, and they worked their way up because they've only ever had one ambition in life, and that is to be a Labour MP. So, but in the same way, that's why Starmer is not going to resign of his own volition. He has worked too hard to get to this position. Let's be clear.
That's it. He has got a gold-plated pension pot. I reckon he's going to be all right. There we are.
How old is he?
He's older than me. Isn't he 60 odd?
Oh, nearly coming up to pensionable age. Let's not start that argument again about whether or not he should get the state pension.
Yeah, exactly. No, he's not going to live on the state pension, that's for sure. And also want to talk about Lord Herman. He's his big mate, the Attorney General. He's a man who, basically, if he crossed the road, if he walked into the studio right now, we wouldn't recognise him. He's an absolute no-mark, other than the fact he's a very big wig in the human rights lawyer world, if you want to be a big wig in the human rights lawyer world, which Keir Starmer was as well. But he's basically, the Prime Minister's big mate, gets the Attorney General job. And he has launched this extraordinary attack on British soldiers. Bearing in mind, he's the guy who worked with Phil Shiner, who's been prosecuted since for basically bringing dodgy cases on a no-win, no-fee basis. But frankly, a lot of these things, they get settled. Cases, you still make a load of money in the end, and lawyers do this for a reason, and they're basically bringing all these really dodgy cases by Iraqis who were claiming they'd been tortured or their family members had been murdered by British soldiers in Iraq. We had a £31 million public inquiry that you and I paid for, not the lawyers, you and I paid for. It was chaired by Sir Thane Forbes, and it concluded that the allegations were, quote, deliberate lies and driven by, quote, ingrained hostility towards the British Army. And yet they pursued all these cases, making money out of it. And extraordinarily, even though a lot of these lawyers were warned, no, look, these people are not legit. They carried on with the cases anyway. Now, in emails obtained by the Telegraph show the Attorney General, Lord Herman, telling human rights lawyers they had done more good for society than the decorated soldiers they had falsely accused of murder and torture. He said the falsely accused soldiers, he said, could never claim to have made a real difference to people's lives, unlike the lawyers who had pursued the case for a decade. What an extraordinarily awful, wrong, factually inaccurate, immoral thing to say.
Let's also just think about the sorts of people that he's talking about, because an awful lot of these people who join the British Army, they're ordinary people. They come out of school, they don't have the fantastic educations that people like Lord Herman would have had. They don't have those options that are open to them, and they are basically patriotic. They want to do something practical. They want to do something with their lives that gives them a bit of upward mobility. They want to see the world, maybe. They go into this with all the right reasons. Nobody enters, or very vanishingly few people, enters the British Army with the desire to go and commit war crimes. If anything, frankly, they'd rather avoid conflict altogether, as anybody would. So the idea then that somebody like Lord Herman and other people like him who stand, as you say, to make fortunes and their reputations and indeed political careers off the back of lambasting and villainising these people, it just... I'll be diplomatic. It doesn't sit very well with me, and I don't think somebody who has said these things should be Attorney General.
Yeah, full stop, end of. Love to hear your thoughts on all the topics we talked about. The King and Queen's visit, will Keir Starmer survive? A lot of you messaging in about that. Lord Herman and what he said. Say, give us a call, 0344 499 1000 is a number to get in touch. Text word talk as well with your message to 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. This is Talk.
the handover briefing I was getting as I arrived at post was what I felt was a generally dismissive attitude to his vetting clearance. The focus was on getting Mandelson out to Washington quickly. Despite this atmosphere, an atmosphere of pressure, the department completed developed vetting to the normal high standard. Because the vetting process is not there to determine fitness for office or reputational risk, it's there to protect national security.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you so much for your company. 11:28 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls and your texts coming in about, well, the Prime Minister, Lord Herman, you name it. Let's go to Ian, who is in London. Hello, Ian. What do you want to say?
Good morning, Julia.
Morning.
I was prompted to call after listening to your interview with the retired army officer.
Yeah.
Well, I've got news for him. By the way, I did serve as a reserve soldier for 4 years.
Yeah.
These people don't have a moral compass. It's missing.
You mean the likes of Lord Herman?
Yeah, but all of them. We did have some MPs who had moral compass, but they're both dead. David Amis and Joe Cox. So we just don't have them. And it was really disappointed. I'm really disappointed that he didn't put a more forceful performance in and condemnation of the behaviour of these people.
I mean, I disagree. I think a lot of politicians do have a moral compass, and it's the reason they've gone into politics. And I say that of politicians who I know from, well, I'm going to go of not all political parties that I know of in terms of personally, but most political parties that I know have very much different views. But I have to say, I just don't think you can be. I don't think you could be Attorney General if you're just all about like the letter of the law, as opposed to right and wrong. Right and wrong.
Apparently you can.
Well, yeah, apparently you can. What do you think the hold is that he's got over Keir Starmer? Do you think they basically just agree on everything? Because I'm always thinking, like, you know, if you got pictures of him doing something dodgy naked at uni or something, because it's like, how is this man he's so unsuited to this job?
Well, you do wonder. But, I mean, the recruiters now have descended on poor working class areas. It was reported some time ago.
For the military?
Because a lot of young lads, white working class, they do it to get out of poverty.
Yeah, you get training, you can, Yeah,
exactly. But what's the point if this is the way you're going to be treated?
Yeah.
And I know that people who have served are telling their sons and daughters not to join.
Yeah, I can absolutely understand that. I mean, I'm not surprised. Ian, thank you for that. Jason is on the line in Wiltshire. Jason, good morning to you. What do you want to say?
Morning, Julia. Thanks for taking the call.
Thanks for calling.
Did you have a nice long break in Lisbon? Did you have any drunken photographs? Are we going to see them?
There are drunken photographs. I am not putting them online for some bizarre reason.
Oh, that's a shame. But at least you had a good time. That's the
Thank you
main
very
thing.
much, sir. I do like somebody who keeps track of my holiday plans.
Yeah, it's all these holidays you have. You have more holidays than I have hot dinners. I mean, you know.
I was going to say I haven't been away since March.
One hasn't been away since last November. So, well,
I'm just saying, some of us, you know, it's just the priority. Also, the young one's gone off to uni. We can go whenever we want. It's brilliant. Anyway, Jason, let's talk about something important.
Yeah, old Judith Chalmers. I can't actually see him going anywhere for the foreseeable.
Let's talk about Keir Starmer at this point.
Yeah. One reason being, he's not going to want to give up that lovely privileged position of what he's doing, so he'll fight like cat and dog to keep that.
No one who fights to become Prime Minister wants to walk away from it.
No, it's all that privilege, you know. He's got more air miles than what you have, so I mean, he's, you know. But on the next thing is, I don't think anybody in his party is actually going to want to sort of inherit and jump into the mess that he's made.
Well, certainly they're all waiting until after the May elections, aren't they? But there was a point about a couple of weeks ago, people going, no, I think the hairy moment's over, and he's somehow going to sort of carry on limping on until the end of the year. And I just don't think that now.
No, even after, I think the May elections, I think they're going to get obliterated in again, are you going to want to be the man/lady that's going to take over that? And it's just what they're going to inherit. It's just going to be a complete and utter shambles.
So you think he's not going to go anywhere? But do you think? But at the end of the day, you've got a load of MPs who are going to say, yeah, this guy has trounced us in the polls. We've actually seen our councillors, who are our mates in the local area, losing their seats. And are we going to keep this loser on? I think they're going to go, nope. They're looking at their mortgages, they're looking at their bills, and they're looking at their jobs on the line and going, let's get rid of this guy and give someone else a chance.
Yeah, I thought this would have been done months ago, because I think the conversation's been quite a few times. Is he going to go over this? Is he going to go over that? It doesn't happen. I mean, if we go back to Mrs. Thatcher's days, I mean, when she got to the end of her time, that all happened pretty quick in the end.
After
I mean,
10
her government
years.
actually... Yeah, but I mean, towards the end of it, I know she had little bits, but she hadn't car crashed the country like what he's done, has he?
No, she left it in a very good nick. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Jason, thank you very much. I'll send you a postcard next time. 11:33 is the time. We get a couple of messages on will the Prime Minister go. Paul says he won't go. He's done enough wrong already, yet he's still there. Deborah says they all must go. What we really need is a general election. Ivan says the fact that he's stayed shows he has a hidden agenda. Otherwise, he'd have gone already. He shouldn't be allowed to make any more political decisions. Taxi for Starmer and for Labour. And another Julia says he's misled the House on multiple occasions. He's lied. He's corrupt. Just let that sink in. Well, we'll find out what our next guest thinks about that. He's Kevin Marr, former Labour Special Advisor, up next. Stay tuned. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back to the show. 11:36 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Benedict Spence still here. We'll get his thoughts on what our next guest has to say in a moment. He is former Labour Special Advisor Kevin Marr and joins us to talk about, well, is Labour in civil war, some are saying. A very good morning to you, Kevin.
Good morning, Julia. How are you doing?
I won't reiterate everything that I was saying a bit about 20 minutes ago about all the different events that are going on this week for Keir Starmer, but safe to say it's going to be a difficult few days for the Prime Minister and certainly a difficult few weeks with those elections on the 7th of May. And yet, I would say, I mean, hilariously, because I think you've got to say this is hilarious, Keir Starmer has vowed to stay on as Prime Minister until the 2030s, not just like to the end of the week or the end of the year, or to the next election, but he says he's going to fight the next election. And he said that the problem is that loyal Labour MPs' voices are not being heard, and that's why people think that he's not popular. Is the man delusional? Do we need to get the men in white coats?
You've got to be an optimist in politics, I suspect. This is Keir Starmer's worst week since last week, and next week is going to be worse than this week. Given the state of the election results and all the evidence that we've got that they're going to be a stinker for the Labour Party all over the place. I mean, he's got a very difficult hand. He's got an economy that's pretty moribund. He's got public services, and we've got the international picture, and he's not got the cash to splash and all of that. But I mean, in this game, you've got to try and reduce the unforced errors. You've got to try and play down the kinds of things, the Mandelson appointment being the absolutely classic now example of something that shouldn't have happened. It's created such a stink, such a mess, such a delicate process. These are the kinds of things when you've got a very difficult in tray to begin with, don't add things to it yourself.
This is the
classic
thing.
Example he's got to learn.
Yeah, but that's it. And when it comes to the economy, we're not in good nick, because after 18 months, most of the decisions made by this government, by this Chancellor, that he appointed, for which, and by the way, the Prime Minister's First Lord of the Treasury, he gets to sign off on this stuff, have made things a lot worse. But this is it.
But he did inherit a shambles as well.
Well, did you say you inherited a shambles? Actually, if you look at month-on-month growth, it wasn't great. It wasn't great, but it's got worse under your lot. And here's the thing:
it was terrible.
But your lot are going, oh, but we've got the Iran conflict. Sorry, had you heard of Ukraine and had you heard of lockdown?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. But I mean, the Tories, objectively made a hash of things, which is why the British public gave them the almighty kick to the curb.
Which is why I said they should be ousted. I mean, it's not like I'm not an equal opportunities kicker-outer of governments.
Absolutely. The same might happen again. I think we may be now in an age when we just have these massive oscillations of governments because people say, I'm sick of this one, give the other guy a try, sick of them, let's try somebody else.
And my part of that is
that... the explanation why the Greens and Reform, of course, are doing very well, that they've not been tested or they've not failed the British public, to put it that way.
And I hate to say to people, whatever people's political persuasion, and I would say this about all parties, they will all fail because we're all insisting that they lie to us and tell us that we can have everything we want and not pay more taxes. And it's all a big lie. And until we demand and reward honesty in our politicians, we're going to keep getting it. We get the politicians we deserve. I've always said that. But let's talk about the Prime Minister specifically. We've got a plan of a vote. So votes for Commons Speaker Lindsay Hoyle is going to make a statement today, we understand. And this is about a demand from not just the Tories, other opposition parties and Labour MPs calling for a referral to the Commons Privileges Committee. Now, this is basically the committee that looks into whether there's been slege or dishonesty or lack of probity. And it's the same one that looked into Boris Johnson and basically did for him. And this is about this leading Parliament over the Mandelson job. And basically, the Prime Minister has said all processes were followed. They clearly weren't. He said there was no pressure whatsoever on the Foreign Office. Well, there clearly was from the evidence we've seen so far. We got tomorrow Morgan McSweeney, his former Chief of Staff, minus one of his mobile phones that's been stolen, and the former boss of the Foreign Office, who was there before Ollie Robbins, Sir Philip Barton. He was the one who was told to just effing approve him, meaning Mandelson, by McSweeney. They're both giving evidence. I mean, we've got a heck of a lot going on for the Prime Minister, given he hasn't even got a proper chief, a permanent Chief of Staff at the moment, and given the ones he's always appointed have been rubbish, given how hapless and hopeless and useless his number 10 staff have been so far. Do you think this is a Prime Minister who has such a lack of political nous and judgment himself? Do you think he can manoeuvre his way through this week?
I think he can. He's got obviously the one big advantage in Keir Starmer's corner, which is just there, is just a whacking great big parliamentary majority, so he can dictate terms in terms of Commons procedure. And I think the idea is that they're going to whip Labour MPs to vote down any referral to the Privileges Committee.
Will they play along though? Because bearing in mind that humble address got Labour support as well, and that has done for the Prime Minister. That's over exposing the decision to appoint Mandelson. Labour backbenchers are furious with the Prime Minister over this appointment.
Yes, they definitely are. And there's a lot of noises off. There always is. But Labour MPs are always rubbish plotters. The Tories are much better at it, to be fair. Give them credit where credit's due. And I think there's a lot of huffing and puffing. But in the final analysis, do you want this Parliament to end early, or do you want to end up in a situation like the Tories did, where we end up with a procession of prime ministers every couple of years? Get rid of one person, and
why do you think that's the option?
They're unpopular and do
But I'm interested why you think that that's the option. So it's either going to be chaos. We were told, weren't we, that it was going to be end of chaos under the Tories, calm with Keir Starmer. But you must have such an incredibly low opinion of the alternatives to Keir Starmer that you think that getting rid of Keir Starmer will just lead to more chaos and hopelessness. You don't think there's a single person who could step in, who'd be supported by, crucially, Labour MPs and Labour activists, that's Labour Party members, which is a crucial thing, who could actually do a better job?
I think this is the sort of chink of good luck and good fortune that Keir Starmer's probably got, that there isn't an oven-ready successor ready to step into the wings. Gordon Brown clearly was running a campaign from day one in 1997 to eventually succeed Tony Blair and chivvy him along when he thought he was staying there a bit too long. And it was a very smooth progression. There wasn't even a Labour leadership contest, because I think John McDonnell tries to stand against him from the left and didn't get the MPs to nominate him, even to get him on a ballot paper to stand against Brown. So it was a very kind of orderly transition. It was the last time Labour was in power, Callaghan taking over from Harold Wilson in 1976. I think this time it's very bumpy. It's not obvious who the person in the cabinet is that's best placed, or a couple of people that are best placed to replace Keir Starmer. I mean, Angela Rayner keeps being talked up. I suspect Angela Rayner would prefer to do some sort of a deal, perhaps with Andy Burnham. Now that becomes an imponderable, because of course he's not a member of Parliament, and he would need to get in the Commons.
But that can be a very quick process once MPs decide. Someone agrees to stand out, assuming there is a safe Labour seat.
Yeah, if Labour MPs coalesced Burnham as, look, he is our best placed person because he's a sort of seasoned politician. He's got a nice style about him, Andy. I mean, he's a nice chap.
And he's been rejected twice by the Labour Party members.
True, but is it third time's a charm? But it may well be that actually, somebody that is just generally more popular, and we're probably in those terms at the moment where most cabinet ministers have pretty dreadful numbers, like Keir Starmer, not as bad as his.
I mean, Burnham is a great communicator. There is no golden
alternative at the moment.
Yeah, no, he's a great communicator, and he's done a really good job, I think, as Mayor of Manchester in terms of representing, certainly during lockdown. He's on the show a lot, but again, there was a reason, presumably, why he was called Flip Flop Andy, and he was rejected by the party members the last time around. In terms of the election results we're going to be expecting soon, is there any? I mean, obviously, without mentioning any specific elections, because we get in trouble for those electoral rules. Is there any evidence that the whole Mandelson affair is actually impacting in any way on votes in Scotland, in Wales, or in local elections in England?
I mean, I've spoken to quite a few people over the course of the last few weeks, and I mean, no, in short, I mean, one or two people clearly will raise it. It tends to be cost of living, and until the economy grows, nothing in Labour's garden will grow. It's as simple as that. Everything will be bad until the economy picks up and moves forward, and that's the message that's coming back off the doorstep.
And it's not going to, is it? Because we haven't even had the economic impact of the Strait of Hormuz closure. Even if it opened, at midday today, we will still have an impact in 6 months' time of that.
And it's that quantum. It's months of a lag. And there's some economic data that's been buzzing around in the last few weeks, which has been a bit more promising. But it's cold. The issue with Iran is just cold water over the economy. And until that changes, Labour's fortunes won't change. So it's slightly perverse in a sense to move at this moment to get rid of Keir Starmer.
So again, it's not just like so. Any rival candidates either not quite ready yet for still battling with HMRC or still trying to get a seat, or wanted to get their Mandelson links like Wells Streeting behind back in the distant memory. But it's just people were waiting. Let the Prime Minister take the hit for the local Welsh and Scottish elections, and I can start again. But you're saying actually they may want him to take the hit for the economy as well. But by all accounts, the Prime Minister, we're told, is planning to make Rachel Reeves take the hit for the economy. Very unpopular figure. She's got no sort of constituency with the party. No one will mind seeing her gone, least of all us here at this station, that's for sure. And he could just sack her in a reshuffle if he manages to stay in the next weeks after the May elections, and then he can put someone new in.
I mean, potentially it does, but again, it's the question of what's the new direction. Is it just a case of fresh faces? Because fresh faces in this game don't last very long. You've got to have changes of direction. I'm reminded really of the kind of Norman Lamont situation after Black Wednesday in '92, where he sort of stayed on for a bit longer, and then Ken Clarke was put in as the government's best communicator and a proper fresh face. But there was a real direct change of direction, obviously, when we left the exchange rate mechanism, and we haven't got that moment here where in a sense, it's a very tight fiscal situation and growth is very low, and we've got sticky inflation. Now, until we can manipulate the economy to get rid of at least one of those problems, we're not going to get growth. We're not going to move forward. And there's a point here, and I don't to sound dismissive of the Prime Minister or Rachel Reeves, but in a sense, politically, you use them as a bad bank. You load all the debts, all the failures into this period of government, this very hard period. and keep them there, and then if you want to change leader then a little bit later on, you get a boost, and you get the chance for a proper meaningful reset. At this point, getting rid of Keir Starmer after next week or in a few weeks' time does not give Labour a reset. It's a false dawn.
Well, really... absolutely. I'm going to how many more resets we've had. Kevin Mark, really interesting to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Former Labour Special Advisor. I like what he was saying at the beginning. This is the Prime Minister's worst week, Benedict, since last week, and next week could be worse again. I mean, that's a fair analysis.
It is, and it does remind one of the Boris Johnson sort of those final few months where it was always kind of like, is this the beginning of the end for Boris Johnson? Is this the beginning of the end? Is it the end of the beginning of Boris Johnson? And it was just that constant, at some point it's not going to be recoverable. We've long since gone past that with Keir Starmer. Everyone knows you can't claw your way back. He's only there because, as was just said, nobody else really seems like a goer at the moment, even they don't think that about themselves.
No, exactly. It's fascinating. 11:48 is time. Love to hear your reaction to all of that. 0344 499 1000. Up next, we're going to be talking about stuff that is going to make your blood boil, because when you go out to a major attraction, or maybe you go and get a spa day, maybe if you live on the coast, you might try and rent a beach hut, you might have to pay full whack. But if you're a benefit claimant, you get a discount. Who's paying for that? Oh, us. This is genuinely happening. Discounts on spa days and beach hut rental just because you're on benefits. Are you kidding me? No, I am not. That's up next. Stay tuned. This is Talk.
The handover briefing I was getting as I arrived at post was what I felt was a generally dismissive attitude to his vetting clearance. The focus was on getting Mandelson out to Washington quickly. Despite this atmosphere, an atmosphere of pressure, the department completed developed vetting to the normal high standard. Because the vetting process is not there to determine fitness for office or reputational risk, it's there to protect national security.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 11:51 is the time. This is indeed Talk. Let's talk right now about, this story is going to absolutely make your blood boil. Benefit claimants getting discounts for things like spa days and beach huts. And no, it's not just one council, but subsidised beauty treatments, cut price drinks, part of a number of things that are, and it's not, by the way, it's not local businesses. Now, if you're a private business and you choose to give people a discount because they're on benefits, that's entirely up to you. We're talking about council-backed concessions, things organised and paid for and subsidised by the councils. Local councils paid for entirely by your and my taxes. Job seeker claimants accessing things like reduced prices to go to a football match, to a comedy club, cinemas, saunas, spas, being able to get drinks at bars, massages, eyebrow treatments through local government schemes. This is absolutely extraordinary. Let's talk about this with Maxwell Marlowe, who's Director of Public Affairs at the free market think tank, the Adam Smith Institute. Maxwell, good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia. How are you?
Very well. No, I'm not very well. I'm bloody boiling right now, I have to say. But we can understand why, people who are on benefits, low incomes, they get a discount on their council tax, and maybe you should get maybe some subsidised travel to help people go and get a job. My view, only subsidise it for when you're on the way to a job interview and on the way back. Otherwise, no. But how on earth have we got to a system where, because someone's on benefits, not on disability, but just on benefits, that they should be offered cheaper prices for, let's face it, luxuries and entertainment, which other people work very hard, pay taxes out of their hard-earned income, which pay for the benefits, and then have to pay full whack on?
Allow me to be facetious slightly here, Julia, but, do we not want our people going to job interviews not to have nicely trimmed eyebrows and to be nice and relaxed and have a nice tan? No, I completely agree. I think it's completely and utterly mad, especially as we know, council taxes are going up. Really, regardless of who's in power, and that's kind of a whole bunch of things. But this is total waste we can see here, and it's not just the council taxes, right? I mean, if I wanted to, let's say, go to Westminster Abbey, it would cost me 31 quid, but if I was on universal credit, it would cost me 8 quid. Who's paying for that? Who's cross-subsidising? I am, or you are.
Because people think, oh, well, I'm not getting the money, they're not getting the money. No, someone is. The reason we have to pay more is because there's other people going in who are not paying the full whack.
Exactly, it's completely mad. And Michael Simmons of The Spectator really unlocked this a couple of weeks ago in a story he did kind of, about this cross-subsidisation. It's completely and utterly nuts. And I mean, let's not forget how large the benefits bill is at the moment. It's over £300 billion, and yet that, for some reason, doesn't manage to cover the luxury wants and needs of the largest amount of people, of course, who are who don't need to find work. It's about 4.2 million people, which, by the way, is up 1 million since last year. So it's a huge number of people moving over to this, and they're really dining out at the taxpayers' expenses.
I mean, we have to allow.
It's completely mad.
That £300 billion welfare bill. I mean, the vast majority of that, I think it's 180 or something, is pensions. I think a lot of people,
133, 133 billion.
But I think a lot of us don't mind, pensioners getting a discount, and so often if they're doing things during other people's working hours and they wouldn't afford to do it otherwise, and businesses benefit. And again, that's up to businesses to decide to do that. If that makes early bird dinners, or all of those sort of things for if you show your pensioner's card ID, that's one thing. But we are talking about stuff that why are you going on a spa day? I mean, a spa day is something. A spa day is something. Getting but these people, I don't know what they're getting their eyebrows something done. I don't do all this stuff. This is stuff that people work hard to be able to afford as a treat. This is like something you give someone for a birthday. This isn't something that if you are really struggling on benefits, maybe you should be spending your time trying to get a job rather than going on a spa day. I'm not saying you can't have a nice time, but when you're now not allowed a holiday ever. But this is just taking them in. But this is part of a whole culture, isn't it? This idea that just putting everybody on the payroll, that the state just grows and grows and grows. But there are so few people now working, and not just because of the age, the demographic time bomb, people not having babies. As you say, all these people, particularly young people, are not working. If they're not working in their 20s, they're never going to work.
Exactly. I mean, I think the term for eyebrows, by the way, Julia, is to get them laminated, which is what they should be doing in a job in an office instead of at a beauty bar. But no, I agree entirely. And I think, the reason why a lot of young people can't get jobs, it was, partly because of lockdown and the ruining of their education. It's also because of this government's choice to increase taxes on work, which we've seen in the unemployment statistics, which, by the way, the government claim unemployment's coming down. Well, statistically, they're correct. Only if you remove the fact that if you're on out-of-work benefits, you don't need to find work, then you don't count in the statistics. So we know that unemployment's going up.
I mean, look, Tony Blair did it by saying, let's send 50% of young people to a university. Brilliant. So you just got 50% of people, about half of whom should never be at university, got into unnecessary debt, got no benefit from university education in terms of a better job, but they're off the unemployment benefit rolls for 3 years. Well played, But that's what we're doing with disability benefits now. And as you say, these people are never required to even look for a job. How would you turn this around? Because I mean, we've got a lot of parties saying, the Tories say they'll do stuff, the Reforms they do stuff. I'm in favour of genuinely, I want everybody, you're on benefits. I want you to come in, Village Hall, you tell us why you need those benefits, and we'll take a vote. The taxpayers will have a vote on whether we judge that you deserve or need those benefits. And I think the public, when it's their money, are going to be rather a lot harsher than the people who are sitting on a Zoom call being paid per person they sign up to the benefits in the benefits office are going to actually approve. Do we need to literally, start hauling people over the coals?
Well, I think this is the great thing about a free press and high quality journalism, which the UK is very lucky to have, really. So if really people should be, if they're upset about the story, they want to change, they should be emailing their councillors, they should be emailing the council and saying what is going on here. Likewise, emailing their MPs. Yeah. I mean, it comes back to your point earlier about getting everyone on the payroll to make sure everyone's okay. It's not how the world works. It's kind of Karl Marx, wrote about this back in the 1800s. The perfect communist societies where you work for a third of the day, you read for another third, and you go hunting in the evening. We're not at that point. I woke up at 5:30 this morning, to do work and come into work, and I'll be going home, when the sun has set. So, and I'm paying for all this, and so I'm sure are your listeners and viewers.
Are you getting a free spa day at the end of it?
I wish I was. I wish I was getting a tax rebate.
And also, especially when it's local councils, by the way, you do sort of think. Sorry, if you're going to have you mended that pothole in my street, and have you collected my bins at any point in the last 2 weeks, rather than benefits, frankly, for a lot of people who are frankly layabouts.
Yes, exactly. I think that this is the huge problem, which is the council's completely distracted with doing all of this stuff, then people should write to their council and complain. You've got
to tell the people who come and canvass you, if you've got local elections in your area, wherever the party is, tell them I'm not happy with this, I don't want this, and I'm not going to vote for you because of this. You've got to punish them. It's the only language they understand. Maxwell Marlowe, always good to talk to you. You go and get yourself a nice nap. Adam Smith Institute at Maxwell Marlowe there. Benedict Spence. I mean, this is infuriating for people who are going out to work.
Almost all of this, except there are 4 exceptions. Parliament, St Paul's, Westminster Abbey and the Tower of London. People should be able to see the site of their democracy, where their monarch is crowned, the home of their national heroes, where they're buried, and their crown jewels. And I would extend that to everybody, but these are things that people currently have to pay for.
Not Parliament. I feel very strongly about.
If you want a guided tour, you can get in free with your MP, but if you want a guided tour, you have to pay.
Okay, I think that museums and art galleries should all be free. But you charge foreigners; they haven't paid the taxes to pay for it. My thing is I've already paid for this. Thank you. You're welcome.
I agree with that.
So much more to talk about, including that Trump shooting, Keir Starmer, you name it. Lots of your calls coming up too. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very, very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 2 minutes past midday is the time. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you so much indeed, whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, whether you're watching on YouTube or your connected device. Thank you indeed for joining us. Lots more to talk about. Conservative commentator Benedict Spence is also joining us. And if you do miss anything, go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be discussing the King and Queen arriving in Washington today for a 4-day visit for marking the 250th anniversary of the American independence. But this, of course, follows that attempted assassination on Donald Trump, the third attempt on his life in less than 2 years. Also, Keir Starmer, he's been out and about today, lying to Parliament. Oh, no, sorry, not this time. He was pledging to end the shoplifting free-for-all in Britain. But, I mean, really? Are you really going to do anything about it? Because I could solve that for you in one day. You have to arrest some people who are thieving things. It's really that simple. It really, really is. Plus, we're going to be talking about health inequalities, where people in the wealthiest parts of Britain can have, I kid you not, 20 more years of good health than those in the poorest areas. But what is that down to? We'll talk to the wonderful Chris Snowdon about that up later. Lots more to talk about, as I say. Benedict Spence still with me. We've been asking you to get in touch at your calls. I've been asking about particularly Labour MPs calling on Keir Starmer to set a date to resign. And with the Manderson scandal, the failing economy, that May election bloodbath everyone's expecting, can he survive? Tell us whether you think he will, whether you think he won't, and why. But also asking you about the King and Queen and their trip to Washington. Should that still be going ahead? Do you fear for their safety? And an awful lot of you also getting in touch about Lord Hermer, the Prime Minister's busy big mate. Lord Hermer, Attorney General, the human rights lawyer, massively involved in the outrageous prosecution, completely false prosecutions of our brave servicemen and women in Iraq, being accused falsely by Iraqi clients of murder and of torture, and they were exposed as being, basically wrong and making it up. But outrageous persecution of our bravest soldiers, and yet Lord Hermer has been found in an email which has been seen writing to the human rights lawyers involved that they had done more for this country than those brave men with the medals on their chest who have fought for us. An outrageous thing to have claimed, and you are very, very outraged as well about that. Can he even remain at his job if that's what he thinks about our armed forces when he's a serving member of His Majesty's government? I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Also get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text cost £1, standard network rate message. Benedict, before we go to our next guest, let me just get brief thoughts on you. We talked about quite a lot about the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, but you believe that the King and Queen's trip to Europe, to America, should still go ahead?
Yes, I think it should still go ahead. He's not simply the head of state of the United Kingdom, he's also of Canada as well.
He's not going to Canada.
No, but he's there to represent the people of Canada. It's not simply beholden to us. Actually, there are many people, somehow, I know that this is very unpopular, certainly to the Labour government, but the King is the head of state of many places around the world. It's that old legacy of imperialism. And I also don't think that, there'll be the same level of potential for mishap with that many sort of heads of state. I do think that it'll be a much tighter operation in terms of keeping those people safe. It would just be too big an embarrassment to the United States if something were to happen to a foreign head of state whilst they were there.
That would be quite extraordinary. It really would. Well, look, earlier today we spoke to the former head of Royal Protection, Di Davies, who agrees it should go ahead. Let's also talk right now to Matt Terrell again. He's a Republican strategist and a former advisor to the current Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. A very good afternoon to you again, Matt.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time. I mean, first of all, just give me your reaction to what happened on Saturday night at that Washington Correspondents' Dinner. Most of us know that dinner for basically you get an absolute roasting of the president there, and then you get a roasting back for the president. I mean, certainly Obama did some amazing speeches at that big event, big annual shindig, 2,000, the great, the great and the good, the rich, the famous, the journalists, all the broadcasters are all there. But most of the BBC was there, as far as I can tell. And this attempt attempted assassination again, not just of Donald Trump, it appears, but other members of his cabinet. What do you make of it all?
Well, first and foremost, a big thank you to the men and women of law enforcement, of the Secret Service, who obviously stepped up and did their jobs. And the bottom line here is you have people every day who put their lives in the line, not just to protect the president and key officials, but of course the American people as well. So that was obviously important to see and great to see them step up as they always do in their jobs. Look, the truth is this is just a rise that we're seeing in political violence. Obviously, President Trump in particular has been seen now this be his third attempt, if you will, of trying to assassinate him. Let's be clear, this individual obviously had a plan not just to go after other officials in the room, but of course the president being a key target as well. And that's very unfortunate. But what we've seen is a couple of things that I think have only contributed to that, or certainly have not helped. That's the rise in rhetoric that we're seeing from our politicians, sadly. You have Democrat politicians, for example, who have compared President Trump to fascists or Hitler. It's that kind of rhetoric that certainly doesn't help. But then beyond that, right now, today, the number one thing that Congress needs to do, Democrats in Congress need to do, is pass the funding to ensure that DHS, Department of Homeland Security, is funded right now. Today, we have Secret Service agents who are not being paid. That's unacceptable.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a massive budget, but again, you've got this ridiculous thing you have in Congress where budgets end up getting stopped on these votes. It's a very bizarre way of running the country. Look, I haven't got no doubt at all. I mean, the left have got a lot to answer for. This guy, apparently, he's a 31-year-old teacher from California, Cole Allen. He's the man who's been who's going to be appearing in court later today, charged with various gun offences, obviously is related to this. But he did actually manage to shoot an agent who thankfully was wearing a bulletproof vest. But I mean, and by all accounts, he said this manifesto to his family just before the attack, 1,000+ words. One of the things he complained about was the lack of security at the hotel where this event takes place, which is extraordinary. But again, we're talking about someone on the left and this idea that Donald Trump is so uniquely awful and terrible that somehow killing him is justified in the same way that people seem to think it was justified for a boss of a health insurance company to be shot dead. The thing is, whenever I hear Americans say, particularly American politicians, violence is not part of our democracy, it's not part of the political system. I mean, it is. It literally is. You're the only first world country where attempted assassinations, successful assassinations, violence threats are completely routine. Why is that?
Well, in fact, it's not just against politicians here in the United States. Look, you remember Charlie Kirk. Yeah. Not all that long ago was assassinated. Yeah. And so I think conservatives, frankly, particularly the United States of America, feel under attack right now. But look, this is not a Republican or a Democrat issue. This is an American issue. And all Americans obviously should rally behind ensuring that we tone down the rhetoric. I think the rhetoric, particularly coming from the Democratic left, has not been helpful in terms of, again, calling President Trump a fascist or comparing him to Hitler. Yeah. That doesn't help. And so obviously we need to let the investigation take its course with respect to this exact situation that took place on Saturday night. But the reality is we do have an issue with the rise in political violence. You can blame social media, you can blame other dynamics. Right now, I think a lot of the blame is on politicians who make the choice to use rhetoric that I believe is very hurtful. Well, and in many cases certainly does not help.
I agree with you that I think there's a bigger issue on the left and they do not own it. I mean, but I'm sorry, Donald Trump's rhetoric a lot of the time, not your old boss, Marco Rubio. I have to say he's always been very very measured in his words. But Donald Trump, I mean, again, in no way does it ever remotely justify anyone. He's not a fascist. He's not, all these stupid words that are used about him. I mean, it's embarrassing that people throw these words and lose their meaning. I mean, they call me a fascist, for goodness sake. I mean, for goodness sake. But some of his rhetoric, and stuff he used to say about journalists and how, wanting journalists shot, a lot of people would say, well, it takes one to know one. I'm sorry, no way justifying any attempted assassination. But, a lot of people might say, you started it childishly.
Well, look, the truth is, President Trump has a style and approach of what he does. And I can tell you about his rhetoric. He did a fantastic job on Saturday night in terms of taking to the podium in the White House after this incident and really speaking to the nation. I was amazed, frankly, at how calm he was. Yeah. He really, I think, stood up and in his recent rhetoric, really, I think, has been trying to unite the country here. I think he's done a fantastic job in terms of his latest remarks. But, what's important now is action. And I go back to, there's certain actions that our leaders do need to take. One of them, not to be repetitive on this point, but I care deeply about it, is ensuring that the Department of Homeland Security has the necessary funding. We need to ensure right now in this critical time, we see this rise in political violence, that we're giving law enforcement every tool they need to succeed.
Would it also be a good idea if people couldn't just like walk off the street, buy a pint of milk and then a gun? Would that help too?
Well, look, my philosophy on this is that at the end of the day, people have their own views on debates with respect to gun policy in the United States. But look, truthfully, people kill people. Guns don't kill people. Yeah, I know.
But people with guns kill a lot more people than people without guns.
Right. But there's other things we need to get to as well. Obviously, mental health is important. I think you've seen the White House, frankly, a step up in trying to address certain dynamics related to mental health in the United States. You know, this is not just against leaders. We've seen other violent activity take place, and I think mental health is a big part of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I went to school in America as a kid. God, I'd be terrified to go to school in America now, having to have practices for when an ex-pupil decides to turn up and shoot us all. I mean, it's just absolutely extraordinary. You talked about how the security services did their job. We've had a former head of Royal Protection here, Di Davis, going, it doesn't look like that to him. A man being able to run through 2 security, gates, not stopped. When the only person who got shot was a Secret Service agent, thankfully wearing a bulletproof vest. But I mean, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shots fired. Not one hitting Cole Allen, who was arrested without any wounding. How does that happen? I mean, where were they shooting if they were not shooting at him? And it's all very well he didn't make it to the ballroom, but what if he'd had a suicide vest on? What if he had actually just run through there and then detonated himself? We're in a very different territory then, aren't we?
Well, there's no question you're going to see an investigation take course here, right? I mean, look, the Secret Service, other key components here in Washington in particular, we'll review this. And it's important every instant to review and see what can you learn from, what can you do better. And you go back to Butler, Pennsylvania. When Trump was nearly killed.
Well, let's not allow people to take a gun and set up on a roof in plain sight of everybody to shoot the president. I mean, that would be a lesson learned from that one.
Lesson learned, but obviously in Butler, Pennsylvania, I was shocked at, frankly, what occurred there. But look, to your point, I think it's important to really unpack and make sure that we are course correcting if and where needed. And I'll defer to law enforcement and others who will be a part of the Secret Service. Look, part of this is the Secret Service is now being run under DHS, and again, I'm saying it for the 3rd time now. But I think it's important to fund DHS.
You said that. Let me talk about the royal visit, because King Charles and Queen Camilla are coming. Now we know things have been rather strained between our 2 countries over Iran, over our mass migration, legal migration issue, over welfare, over net zero, you name it. Donald Trump has been very critical, I think quite rightly, on all those points indeed, over our government on this. He used to talk about Keir Starmer being, he was a great guy, he was a nice guy, they were friends. And now it's all, he's no Churchill. I mean, that's, again, a certainly fair criticism. But we know he loves the king. He's called him his friend. He said yesterday that he was very brave. He was still coming on the trip. Are King Charles and Queen Camilla going to be safe, given the security issues you've got over there?
Well, I believe they'll be safe. I mean, look, you're obviously seeing this trip proceed forward, and people understand that the security planning for this has been taking shape well in advance. But look, there are things to be recognizing here. I mean, the king is going to be on the move here. He's got scheduled events in New York, for example. So that changes the dynamic. You saw President Trump talk about the need for the ballroom. And the reason why that is important, in my view, is because the White House is a very secure venue, right? So you're dealing with a situation here where the king will be on the move. He's got an event in Virginia scheduled, in New York, like I said. And so that is a security component here. When you're not in a secure complex like the White House, that does create more risk. I mean, the event that took place on Saturday night was at a hotel that frankly anybody could have access to. It's the same hotel that President Ronald Reagan was shot at. So you have to be mindful of the venues, and I'm confident that the security here in Washington and beyond will be there, obviously, to support this visit. And obviously, it's great to see the king come here. I know the president and the king have a longstanding friendship and relationship. Obviously, it's a different relationship than President Trump's relationship with Prime Minister Starmer. There's no question about that.
And there's no doubt at all. I mean, Donald Trump is a massive Anglophile. His mum was Scottish. He used to love the late Queen. He's had 2 state visits over here. Very, very rare thing to be offered. But how much do Americans care about the British King and Queen coming? Because at the end of the day, I mean, they may have known more. I mean, the late Queen was basically the most famous woman on the planet. I mean, take your big bottom, Kim Kardashian. Our Queen was the most famous woman on the planet. But with all due respect to our current King and Queen, we're not. There isn't the same excitement as there would have been over, say, Princess Diana, or indeed William and Kate, the young stars of the royals. How much interest or excitement, if any, is there?
Well, people are in the United States paying attention to this visit. Part of that's just, frankly, given where the relationship is right now between the U.S. and the U.K., I still believe this is a very unique, special relationship. But obviously, there's been tension around the war in Iran. No question, President Trump's been disappointed with the U.K. government, Prime Minister Starmer in particular's position on Iran, if you will. There's other things taking place. So there's members of the business community who are paying attention to this. We're dealing right now, for example, with this tax on UK tax on tech companies, U.S. tech companies. So that's something that people are watching here. But in the end, I think that the royal family, the UK-U.S. relationship, that's a very special place in Americans' hearts. I know it's a very special place in President Trump's heart. I think you hit the nail on the head that his mother and throughout the years growing up, President Trump was very attuned and watching closely the royal family. So this is a very important trip. The last time we saw this kind of trip from the royal family, if you will, was in 2007 under President George W. Bush. So obviously there's been a massive time gap. It's exciting to see, it's exciting to watch. But look, it's important to see what comes out of this as well. And obviously it's important to ensure that we strengthen the U.S.-UK relationship. But it's a special relationship at that.
And that's the thing. There's been a lot of talk. I mean, the last 20 years, everyone in the British side going, oh, we've got this special relationship. And everyone goes, oh, well, and yet, the French president gets invited over, or this person gets invited over, and our Prime Minister doesn't get invited over. It isn't really very special. The reality is, we need you guys more than you need our guys. But do you think there is still a general feeling? Is it just, we speak the same language, that there is still that bond between our two countries?
I believe so. I think there certainly is, but look, there are challenges here. There are clear disagreements, and I go back to Iran has been arguably the biggest one right now. Yeah. I do think that President Trump in particular feels burned, not just by UK government, but frankly by NATO in general. And I think that if you're going to have an alliance, it's important to be united in the most important times, and when you're standing up to an Iranian regime. I know there's different views on this war, I get it, but in my view at least, when you are standing up against a regime that's been the greatest state sponsor of terrorism, it's important to have unity on that. Yeah. And the world is watching. The UK-US enemies are watching this relationship. So I disagree strongly, obviously, with Prime Minister Starmer's handling of Iran. That's my belief. I know others have different beliefs on this, but obviously that's the biggest issue right now on the table.
Yeah,
is this
absolutely. I mean, just finally on the Iran issue, we've spoken to you about this before, as a former advisor to Marco Rubio, the current Secretary of State. Where are we in terms of Iran? Because at one point, with the Prime Minister's, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his golf buddy, Steve Witkoff, on a plane ready to make the 17-hour flight to Pakistan to attend talks. The Iranians were already in Pakistan and went, oh, we're leaving, we're not staying. Right, no, and it's going to have to go on Zoom now. Are we any closer to any sort of deal? And who's going to blink first when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz and the damage that's being done to the world economy?
Well, I think the Iranian regime here, what's left of it, or whoever's in charge over there, because it's still a bit unclear, obviously. Look, they're playing games. There's no question about that. I think their strategy is, they wrongfully believe that President Trump has political pressure or economic pressure. That's just not the case.
Why do you say that?
It's not the case because I think on the economy front, we're seeing the stock market hit all-time highs. I think if you look at oil, you saw people run around. I saw many people claiming that you'd see $200 per barrel in oil. That hasn't been the case. And I think politically, the president, frankly, doesn't care. I don't think he's concerned right now about the politics of this in terms of the upcoming midterm elections. I think he's really zoned in on the policy of this and understand that this was the right thing to do. You're not going to break President Trump's will. So the strategy among Iran right now is to outweight President Trump or believe they have leverage on that. They're thinking the wrong way. He is going to double down here, and they can do this one of two ways, the easy way or the hard way. And President Trump moved in that third carrier into the region. That's a sign that the president's willing to use military force if needed again here to ramp up that pressure. But there's deep economic pressure right now in Iran that can't be ignored. You're seeing skyrocketing inflation. You're seeing them losing roughly $500 million a day. They need to be exporting oil. They can't do that right now. That's a big revenue stream, of course, for the country. Look, what they need to do in the end is push for good faith order. And part of that would be giving up enrichment, handing over enrichment. That'd be a good sign forward. They need to do good faith. They never have. They need to start doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good to talk to you. Covered a lot of ground there. Matt Terrell, Republican strategist. He's a former advisor to Marco Rubio. As I said, thank you very much for joining us there from the States. Benedict Spence, on the issue of Iran, I mean, we've barely touched on it in the cast. This is the backdrop to a heck of a lot of what is going on, not just in this government, in terms of our everyday lives. And we haven't even really seen the impact of this in terms of, those flights that get cancelled, the prices that go up. People, just don't mess with people's summer holiday.
This is why you're going on so many so early.
Going so many, just in case. No, but and prices going up at the pumps and the heating bills that are going to go up later. Food prices, you name it. This is going to have a bigger impact in terms of the world economy than in a few months' time than is actually already happening now. Yeah. Do you think that? What's that line? Taco Trump always chickens out. I mean, it doesn't look like it yet.
No, it doesn't, because I think there is some understanding that even if the US does have to pull out, they'll be drawn back in, because there is no world in which you can actually leave things as they currently are, and the Iranians not make fantastic advantage of that, which will mean continuing to try and develop nuclear weapons, which means the Israelis will strike them again. That's the reality.
Because they have no choice.
Yeah, that's the reality of the situation. Trump can't tackle
Iran cannot be allowed to get a nuclear weapon.
He
Full
can try.
Stop. Nothing to discuss.
He can try and pull out. He can try and chicken out. But the Israelis and the Gulf states will drag him back in, because the Iranians will continue down this path. That's the only route here.
I have a funny feeling that in these negotiations, sometimes the Israeli negotiators don't tell the truth.
They don't. I mean, it's true.
I know. Amazing. You can't trust a word they say, because when they do deals and they say they're not going to enrich uranium and then they carry on doing it, it's almost like they were just playing us in the West. I mean, it's stunning. Who would have ever thunk it, eh? Anyway, I want to hear your thoughts on anything and everything we're talking about. Get in touch. 0344 499 1000. I know a lot of you, particularly incensed, as you should be, by the fact that local councils are basically giving discounts to a lot of people on benefits. I'm not talking about pensioners. I'm talking about young people. Got a bit of anxiety. It's Monday. I don't really want to go to work. Got a bit of depression. I'm going to be on benefits. Oh, can I have a discount on a spa day, please? Can I have a discount going to get drinks? Can I have a discount here and there? We're paying for that, guys. We are paying for it. When we go to work, we pay full whack for everything, and then we pay taxes to pay for that lot to get it on discount. Meanwhile, when were your bins last collected? Pothole in your street? Not mended? Funny that, isn't it? It's almost like the council's got a different priority. We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk.
The handover briefing I was getting as I arrived at post was what I felt was a generally dismissive attitude to his vetting clearance. The focus was on getting Mandelson out to Washington quickly. Despite this atmosphere, an atmosphere of pressure, the department completed developed vetting to the normal high standard. Because the vetting process is not there to determine fitness for office or reputational risk, it's there to protect national security.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Afternoon, welcome back to the show. Coming up to 12:27, let's get to your calls and your messages. There's going to be some of them texts and tweets because I'm very bad at getting to those, and I need to get to some of them. In terms of Labour MPs calling on Keir Starmer to set a date to resign, does he survive? Tell us why you think he will, why he won't. Neil says he's rolled the red carpet out to unvetted, unprocessed illegal migrants, put them up in luxury hotels, fed, given health care, all paid for by the taxpayer. I think that's a no. Alan says, please, can these Labour MPs grow a spine? We're all watching your gutless response to this horror. You will never be elected or have your cushy, well-paid jobs again unless you act to limit the damage immediately. Force his resignation or sacking now. Sammy says, how does he still have a knighthood after this amount of scandal? That's a good point. And Gordon says, Starmer won't resign. He's already said he's leading the Labour Party into the next general election. He'll have to be forcibly removed from office. And Yasmin said, there's no way he can survive. When the herd moves, it moves, and it will move, won't it? Let's go to the calls. Malcolm is on the line in Oxford. And Malcolm, you want to have your say on these outrageous discounts that councils are offering people who are benefit claimants for things like spa days and even, in one case, discount rent on a beach hut. What do you make of it?
Julia, I know that Dominic's not going to agree with me because I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago.
Benedict. Yeah. Benedict.
Dominic may not agree with you, but yeah, let's hear what you have to say.
Malcolm, are you still there?
Benedict, sorry, I call you Dominic. I did before.
Oh, he looks like a Dominic.
He does.
Carry on.
Basically, a year ago, last Monday, right, I was given the diagnosis that I've got esophagus cancer.
Oh, my darling, I'm so sorry.
Right, so I'm 74 years of age.
Yeah.
And I'm a pensioner.
Yeah.
And the first time in that week, I've decided to ring Macmillan.
Yeah.
And they were excellent.
Good.
Right? Not about the cancer. As far as I'm concerned, it is what it is, and I will deal with it.
Okay.
It's curable, but I've got to go through a lot of things first.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd ring up and see if I'm entitled to any benefits at all.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think I would be, but I thought I'd try. When you get to pension age, lots and lots of things that you would be entitled to goes away.
Right. And you're sort of talking about things like maybe extra financial help for getting to the hospital treatments and things like that, practical stuff.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. No mobility, no hip or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I said, we went through it, and it's a very, very nice lady. And the thing was, how much savings have you got?
Oh.
And I said, we've got £30,000.
Because we try to be responsible, yeah.
We've saved. I worked from the age of 15, and I retired when I was 70.
You lazy sod.
I just can't believe it. And the amount, I'm sorry, but the amount of spa days I had, well, I can't remember if I actually had one.
Yeah. Because you were busy working and paying your taxes and then putting money away for when you need it. So basically, because you've got savings, you're not entitled to anything.
I still pay tax because I pay tax on my state pension because it's literally just gone over the 12.5.
Yeah.
I pay tax on my private pension because I was responsible.
Yeah.
But I get nothing. However, I can apply for an attendance allowance after 6 months if my condition deteriorates.
That's nice of them.
Whoa, hang on a minute. I've got to get even worse
before you get help,
rather than the positive thought before I get help. They can stick their money. I mean, are you listening to this, Dominic?
Benedict?
What's your point?
He wasn't having a go.
Exactly.
No, this is about... No, I understand what this is about. This is about what I have been saying, which is that people with assets of over £1 million should not get the state pension if everybody else is being taxed through the nose. If working people... No, I'm going to say this now. I'm going to say this now because society is not about individual challenges all the time. I understand you're in a difficult situation, but we are talking about a generation, not just one, in fact, 2 generations of people who will not get a state pension in this country. They will not get on the housing ladder. They will not get any of the things that even today's pensioners get because they are being taxed through the nose to pay for it as it currently is. And I'm sorry that you were missold your pension by the government. Governments lie. I'm getting it missold even more.
But hold on a minute. OK, I've got a lot of sympathy for Benedict on these issues, that generation and younger generations. But I have to say, I was away that day. That was with Alex. That was for dinner night. It wasn't me. Don't blame me. But that wouldn't impact you, presumably, Malcolm. That wouldn't be. You're talking about people who are very. I think maybe more than 1 million, but you know.
Well, with inflation, yes, but that's a good starting point.
But Malcolm, that wouldn't impact you. He's not saying that your pension should be taken away from you.
I'll tell you what. If I had a property of 1 million, as I said before to Dominic, I keep calling him Dom. Why?
I don't know why. I don't know why either.
It's my evil alter ego is called Dominic.
Is it Dominic Grieve? No, the thing is, yeah, I know. That's why I said it. The bottom line is, this is more about the fact that I'm not entitled to it because I've got some savings.
Yeah, no, that's the bit. But it's the same as like when you've got a relative who needs, what if your other half, need dementia care. And then somebody who's never paid a penny in tax, never worked, they'll get it paid for by the state. But if you've worked, you've been responsible and you've saved some money, you don't get it. But if you spend it all, you do get it. It just doesn't feel fair. Malcolm, I wish you, and I'm sure everyone listening and everyone here at Talk, wish you the very best of luck with your cancer treatment. We'll keep everything crossed. Keep in touch with us. I want to know how you're doing. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm just going to read you something else. It's just been handed to me. Guys, you're going to lose your minds over this. Right. We know we've had this issue about the Falkland Islands. We mentioned it a little bit earlier. So, of course, small point worth making, 1982, when the Argentines invaded the Falkland Islands, claiming they were theirs. They'd never been theirs. They never were theirs. They never will be theirs. And, of course, we sent a task force down, which we wouldn't be able to do now, and we freed them. And we've had a poll since, very, very, very clear. They had a referendum. Do you want to remain British, or do you want to be Argentina or independent or whatever you are? And I think, was it 99.8% of Falkland Islanders voted that they were British. That's the end of the matter, I think we can safely say. We've had, obviously, ongoing threats from Argentina. I rather like Javier Milei otherwise, but on this issue, he's very wrong. We've had Donald Trump talking about how, basically, America could stop being supportive of Britain's ownership control of the Falkland Islands as punishment for us not getting involved in the Iran conflict. Guess what? Argentina's vice president, this is Victoria Villarreal, Milei's deputy, she's written on social media that today more than ever the Malvinas, as they incorrectly call the Falklands, are Argentine, and she has suggested that the Falkland Islanders should go back to England. She said if they feel English, they should go back to the thousands of miles away where their country is. She says the Kelpers are English people who live in Argentine territory. That's what she calls the people on the island. They are not part of the discussion. So basically, solve the problem. All the British people on the Falkland Islands should just go and live in Britain. Probably be an easy life, to be fair. It looks quite a harsh life down there. And then the Argentina can get their country back, in their island back, they claim. Benedict, your response to that?
Presumably she posted this in Spanish. The Falkland Islands are British, and now I think about it, I think Tierra del Fuego is as well. I think we should rename it New Orkney, as it has always been and always will be. We're going to rename Ushuaia Thatcherville, and we're going to install a great big Weatherspoons there. That's diplomacy,
Absolutely.
Argentine style. We're just going to say that something that we've never been ours is ours, and we're going to rename it.
Can I say I feel very strongly about that? I've been to Tierra del Fuego and Ushuaia. Can I point? I genuinely, you know me. I like me holes. Can I just say we need to stop colonising places that are really cold? Could we go back to the Bahamas or something? Can we go for somewhere a little bit warmer and a bit nice? I'm just throwing that out there. South of France would be nice, just saying. But I mean, this is just outrageous. But here's the reality. Everyone's going to, we've had Keir Starmer all doing the big I am, hasn't he?
Yeah.
The Falkland Islands are British. They will continue to be British. Only if we can protect them. Right now, if the Argentine army, Navy, invades, we can't do anything about it.
The good news is they don't have a navy. So that's fine. They can't get there in the first place because, let's be clear, Argentina is also a basket case, and they start doing this when their government doesn't do very well.
But you know what? We have a duty of care. They are British.
We do.
British people on that island. We need to be able to defend them and keep them British. As simple as that. 12:36 is a time extraordinary. I'd love to hear your reactions. That 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Frankly, Mrs. Vice President, you could do one. You really can. Up next, we're going to be talking about how the Prime Minister says he's going to solve shoplifting. It's been an epidemic of shoplifting, so they're just going to start tackling shoplifting. It's a mad idea, but might it work? We'll talk to a former Met Police DCI, Mike Neville, about that up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Now, very, very excitingly today, the Prime Minister has been giving a speech. Yeah, that wasn't the exciting bit, but he says he's going to be tackling the shoplifting free-for-all that we've been seeing in recent weeks, months, years. We've seen a massive increase in shoplifting, and not a massive increase in the number of people who are actually charged with going to prison. Although we've seen an uptick in people arrested. But given that nothing pretty much happens to them after they've been arrested, what is the sodding point of that anyway? Well, let's talk about this with Mike Neville. He's a former Metropolitan Police DCI and joins us now. A very good afternoon to you.
Yes, good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Well, we had a speech from the Prime Minister. He's made a speech, therefore something's going to happen. That's how he seems to think life works. The government and the police seem to be utterly perplexed about how to tackle shoplifting. It seems to me to be very, very simple. You should arrest people who do shoplifting and you should put them behind bars. Would that not solve shoplifting really rather quickly?
It would. And so what you have, though, is the government thinks that they make a new law up, it'll help it. So they're proposing that we'll have a new law to assault a shop worker. Well, the last time I looked, it was a crime already to assault a shop worker. And then the proposed sentence is 6 months in prison. Well, the Labour government have done away with 12-month sentences, so they won't go to prison. And a big issue you have, Julie, my expertise in the police was catching criminals with images, CCTV, and you're showing some of that now. And of course, the way to deal with prolific shoplifters is to catch them multiple times on CCTV and then get them locked up. I had a case where we caught the same man 43 times and he went to prison for over 3 years. But the problem...
No, he wasn't. No, he didn't. He was sentenced to 3 years and he served a year and a couple of months. Let's just be clear.
But he did go to jail. And the problem you have is, unlike fingerprints and DNA, there's no national database of images. And that's what they need. So you can catch these prolific criminals who travel around the country and lock them up. Because if there's 100 thefts, that doesn't mean there's 100 thieves.
Exactly.
It only means there's 10 of them who are committing.
Well, this
10
is it. The amount of times I've been told by politicians, we haven't got enough space to put all these people in prison. No, it's the same few people committing all the crimes. And again, everyone's got this lefty nonsense idea that it's a bunch of this is some single mum living on a council estate and she can't afford the food for her baby and she's stealing because she's hungry. rubbish. I talked to all the shops in my local high street, and they've all got a WhatsApp group now because the police were so useless, so they can message, oh, you know, that gang's out today. They have people, it's organised crime, a lot of them are foreign gangs, a lot of them are Romanian in my area, North London, and they literally have spotters, and they wait for stuff to be put out on the shelves. They literally, word goes out, and then they smash into the stores. And we've seen a couple of cases, haven't we, that Marks and Spencer, where the security guard got sacked. We had a Morrison's general manager who tackled a guy who was shoplifting, and he's got sacked. And, you know, there was a protest outside that store from people going, no, we want him back in. We want people to tackle them. I talked to the security guard at my local supermarket. He goes, oh, no, we're not allowed to tackle them. He's a big, big guy, but he's a gentle giant. He goes, we're not allowed to tackle them. We'll get sacked on the spot. And he goes, and the shoplifters know that. They know we can't do anything. And then even if we do stop them, we're not allowed to hold on to them. And even if we did, and the police were there, the police don't do anything either. This is not, I mean, they're acting like this is equivalent to, how could we go and set up human habitation on Mars? This is so simple. People come in and steal. All the shopkeepers know who they are. You arrest them. Frankly, you batter them to the ground and knock them out with chopping. You do whatever you have to do, and you don't prosecute anybody involved in that other than the shoplifter, and then you send them away to prison for long periods of time. Problem solved.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. And the early point you made about organised crime, you know, I was speaking to one of the top security men in one of the big supermarkets, and like baby milk is stolen, not to feed babies. A lot of it is shipped out to Vietnam. Bizarrely, we know that alcohol and the like is. That's sold in big warehouses, you know. So why would, if you own a massive club, why would you go and pay £20 for a bottle of whiskey if you could pay £5?
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of organised crime here. And what we need, the solution to not enough prison places is to build more prisons, not to throw more
prison camps. These aren't, you know, just prison camps. I'm sorry. How much does barbed wire cost? I'm really sorry. I just don't think it's one would man. And what's very extraordinary, he's pledged to end the shoplifting free-for-all. Again, it's another one of his pretend resets. I mean, it's just a joke. But he said this morning that the tide could be turning because there's been a 70% rise in charges for shoplifting. Oh, brilliant, charges. But as you say, if you get sentenced to less than a year, you ain't serving a sentence at all anyway. So what's the point? There'd been a tiny...
Julie.
Yep.
Julie, you know that, for example, I did some research, Freedom of Information Act request, and I found they come on about these community punishments like the tags. Only a quarter of the breaches have anything done about them. And that could be, so 75% are ignored, and 25% doesn't mean you get arrested and put in prison because you breached the tag. It might mean they come round and say, don't do it again.
Little slap on the wrist.
So these criminals are simply not...
they're taking, I mean, they're laughing. They're laughing at us. But what really frustrates me, when they talk about the stats on these things, say the average number of offences of someone who's convicted of shoplifting is now 9 per thief, and that's doubled in 5 years. But again, only 1 in 5 ever get charged, and lots to that. And by the way, like with my bag thief, you know, if you don't turn up to court, no one does anything about it. It would transpire, because mine didn't turn up to court last August, and it's almost May now, and no one seems... I write a monthly email to the police, nothing happens. But when they say an average number of offences was 9 per thief, that's the average number of convictions. That doesn't include all of the arrests and the no prosecuting because no one can be bothered. And it certainly doesn't include the other 400 a week offences they're committing. So it's a drop in the ocean. But this could be dealt with overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. So the solutions to the crime are just obvious. There are these hyper-prolific criminals, a small proportion of people who've got, you know, hundreds of convictions. And there's a point in time, isn't it? I think you give people a fair chance. You have 1 chance, 2 chances, 3 chances. When you're on your 450th chance, it's time to say no more. And there are certain people who should just be locked away from society because all they do is bring misery, violence, wickedness. If they were locked up, then we'd all be a bit safer. You have all these experts who'll come on and say, oh, but people go to prison and they learn about crime. Who do these idiots think these people hang around with outside? Yeah,
exactly. Also, it doesn't deal with reoffending rates. No, if you've already committed 400 offences before you go to prison, odds are you're probably going to carry on doing it afterwards. Oh, Mike, I mean, let's put you in charge. All our favourite coppers who come on the show, I'm just like, why are you not in charge of the Met Police? I keep
offering my services, Stu. I keep offering my services to Matt Rowley, and I've said I'll come and help him. At the moment, they're identifying 59% of criminals caught, and I can get it to 80 for him, but he doesn't answer my email. So I offer again in
there
public.
You are then. Nothing happens. But again, it's when they pretend that this is some incredibly clever thing. It's not. This is policing 101.
What we need is more laws.
Yeah, more laws, absolutely. Let's have more laws we don't enforce. Mike Neville, thank you very much. Speaking for the nation, former Met Police DCI Benedict Spence. Again, it's so frustrating, and it's killing big business and small business. And we, by the way, pay the price, because when someone steals 50 quid's worth of booze or 40 quid's worth of big lamb shoulders or whatever, I've seen people walking out with this big steak. How much do you think extra you're paying for your shopping for them?
Of course, and this is the thing. Once upon a time you would say that the United Kingdom was a high trust society. It clearly isn't anymore. I mean, you still get some pockets in the countryside and all that where people still know their neighbours and they have honesty boxes. Don't lock their doors. But it's going away faster than anybody's comfortable with, and yet our politicians, as you say, continue to take the attitude that those people, the criminals, are in fact the victims.
I will tell you again, also around my way, an awful lot of it has been committed by foreigners.
Yep.
First offence, bye.
Yep.
Bye, out of the country. And why are you in the country in the first place? What job did you come to
Romania
do?
is lovely this time of year. Why aren't you back there?
Around my way, I would say virtually all of them are foreign. Why are we importing criminals? We've got enough of our own, for goodness sake. 12:47 is at the time. Up next, going to be talking about why is your expectancy of health enough? Not just how long you live, but how long you live healthily. Why is it likely that you will live 20 years longer if you live in a rich area with a healthy life than if you live in a poor area? We'll talk about that up next with Chris Snowden from the Institute of Economic Affairs. This is Talk.
The handover briefing I was getting as I arrived at post was what I felt was a generally dismissive attitude to his vetting clearance. The focus was on getting Mandelson out to Washington quickly. Despite this atmosphere, an atmosphere of pressure, the department completed developed vetting to the normal high standard. Because the vetting process is not there to determine fitness for office or reputational risk, it's there to protect national security.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 12:50 is the time. Just some breaking news for you. SNP leader and First Minister of Scotland, John Swinney, says the SNP are planning to bring forward a vote for a new independence referendum on their first day in government if they are re-elected. This is going to be fun, isn't it? It does look like in the polls that they will be re-elected. There was a point about a year ago when Labour thought they were going to be taking over the Scottish government. Doesn't look likely on the current polls. Of course, how people choose to vote on the day is entirely up to them. But they're basically saying they will have a mandate for a new independence referendum. I mean, very briefly, Benedict Spence, I would say fair dues. If they say that's what they're going to do, they'll have a mandate for it.
You say fair dues, I say who cares? Just get on with it. Honestly. Just make up your mind.
Just stop moaning about the English. That's all I'll say. Honestly. I don't care what you do. I want the Scottish people, self-determination, do what you want. But If we have a referendum in England about what Scotland does, that's a different matter entirely. But there we are. Anyway, let's get to our next topic. I want to talk about this healthy life expectancy, and there's a gap between the rich and the poor. So, of course, the BBC are all over this today. Basically, if you live in the wealthiest areas, you have 20 more years of good health expected in your life than if you live in a poorer area. So we're not talking about how long you live. That's also affected, but the years that you live with good health, where you've not got cancer or heart disease or diabetes or, in my case, a dodgy knee right now at the age of 57. Let's talk about this with Chris Snowdon. He's head of lifestyle economics at the Institute of Economic Affairs. A very good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, Julia.
Lovely to talk to you. I thought you were my first choice of guest on this topic because you're always the person who sort of looks at some little, should we say, the reasons behind some statistics to question whether or not the reasons we often hear in the news broadcasts about these things are the cause of these things. Because just to give people the stats, they are quite extraordinary. If you live in a rich area and you're a man, you basically, realistically, you've got until the age of 69 years of healthy life expectancy, but then 14 years of ill health, 68 if you're a woman, and 18 years of ill health. If you live in the poorest areas, you're likely to stay healthy until you're 50, and then you have 23 years of poor health if you're a man. 48 for women is when on average they become less healthy, and then they've got 30 years of poor health. You're looking at women basically spending more than half of their adulthood with poor health, and men about half it. Now, according to the Health Foundation, who looked into this, they say that it's explained by many factors, and this includes obesity, poor housing, and the effects of deprivation, and also the COVID pandemic, which hit a lot of people. I'm really confused. How does poor housing affect how long you're going to live without, say, cancer?
I mean, it doesn't really, does it? There's maybe some indirect causes there, but I don't think it's the main difference in these figures. Look, the one thing that the Health Foundation don't mention is that people aren't stuck where they're born for their entire lives. So people, when they make a bit of money, will move to a nicer area which is wealthier. And some of the characteristics that lead to people having better jobs and having more money also correlate with taking better care of your health.
Yeah. I mean, that's the key thing. A lot of it is when people say, this must cause this, it's not causation, it's correlation. It just happens to be the same thing. I mean, I've always been fascinated by this in terms of like what people's choices are. I'm planning to live a long time. I've got some good longevity genes in my family. I want to be living it healthily. I've had 2 or 3 months with a torn cartilage in my knee, and it's just not being able to walk properly. I had to get wheelchairs to the airport for a holiday in Lisbon. It's killing me, and I'm just like, God, this has been a really good wake-up call. You want to stay as healthy as possible, as long as possible, but it's much easier perhaps to make those good choices if you've got a good job, you've got something to live for, you feel positive about life. You're not living in a sinker state with some Egypt playing music till 4 a.m, going to a dead-end job, and I'm thinking at that point, I think I'd probably have a kebab and 20 cigarettes for dinner.
Yeah, and that's the other side of it. So, on one side, if you've got money, then you can live in a wealthier area, and because you've got more money, you're just likely to be healthier anyway. But the other side of it is, people responding to poverty by leading unhealthier lifestyles, which people in public health act as if it's some weird so sort of bizarre coincidence, yes, or there's some weird causation going on. It's really just a perfectly rational response, actually, to living in pretty miserable circumstances. George Orwell many years ago wrote about how the left wingers of his day were always criticizing the working class for having a bad diet, and he pointed out that you've got no money. Of course, you're going to have a bit more jam on your toast, which is the thing people complain about there.
Yes. It's one of your few pleasures in life.
And have a drink when you can, and maybe smoke cigarettes. So that's the causation there. And you're not actually really helping people that much if you try and take those things away from them.
Well, and again, that's been the whole idea about minimum alcohol pricing and the smoking ban and this and this and that, and let's try and stop people getting obese things. But people make their own choices, and this is where how much is it the decision of the do-gooding, chunky jewellery wearing ladies in public health of what choices other people make? But the argument has been made again and again, hasn't it? Well, it's much easier to eat healthily if you're rich. You go to supermarkets where there's, you know, wonderful range of, you know, there's asparagus and red peppers and blueberries and all of that. But you've done some research, I mean, way back when, showing that this idea that people on low incomes can't afford to be slim and healthy is a load of, frankly, nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, the cheapest stuff in supermarkets are fruit, veg, and starchy carbohydrates, which is what the government says constitutes a healthy diet. This stuff is incredibly cheap. They more or less give some vegetables away. Now, there are expensive fruit and vegetables as well, you know, we're brought in from the other side of the world, but you don't have to have
You don't have to eat kumquats, do you? You can just
exactly, yeah. So this stuff actually is incredibly cheap and always has been, which is why, in fact, it's always been the staple diet of the poor in the first place. You know, the poor have always lived on vegetables and starchy carbohydrates, bread and so on, precisely because they are cheap. Now those foods are considered to be healthy. The reason people don't eat them is because they don't taste that good. Also, a lot of people, including myself, have no culinary skills whatsoever. And so you give me a choice between having to make something from scratch and just popping something in the oven. I'm going to put it in the oven or the microwave.
Or getting the delivery. I've always thought that if you're getting a takeaway, you're not poor. So, you know, they're not cheap. But again, I mean, these are about choice. And we're told often it's about education as well, in terms of people. But don't people know that a plate of chips isn't a healthy diet?
Yeah, I think so. I think teaching kids to how to cook in school is a good idea, but I think the idea that people don't know that smoking's bad for them and that if you have too many cream cakes you're going to get fat is clearly unrealistic.
OK, fair enough. Chris Snowdon, great to talk to you from the Institute of Economic Affairs. Benedict Spence, where do you stand on this?
Well, I'm fascinated to find out that there's two different life expectancy, healthy and unhealthy. I mean, I assume I've been dead for 4 years if we're doing the healthy one. I plan to live unhealthily for a very long time.
You know,
but you're right, this sort of talk about
years ahead.
You know, telling people that chips aren't healthy. Like, come on, obviously everybody knows this, and the smoking thing especially. People know by this stage. I think I agree with Chris there, actually. Teaching people to cook in schools, breaking the cycle of people not knowing how to cook, that's a good use of time. None of the rest of this stuff actually matters.
I know, that's my thing. But also, if people want to drink or eat themselves to an early oblivion, that's freedom.
As long as they pay for it.
That's when you're talking about the impact of the NHS, but also the impact on working. For instance, I'm sorry, I don't want to pay benefits for someone who can't work because they're overweight.
Yeah,
or alcoholism. No, sorry.
Yeah.
You've made your choices. Anyway, lots more to talk about, and I'm sure a lot of these stories are going to be coming up on the next show. Ian Collins is here. Nice to see you at the right time of day. It really threw me seeing you at 10 every day.
Last week, all a bit strange. I don't know what happened. I only came in for a cup of tea and found myself behind there for a couple of weeks. Very strange indeed.
What are you talking about? Because there's so much going on today.
Kumquat, I hear.
Do you know what? I don't think I've ever had a kumquat. It was the only word that came to mind. I genuinely. What is a I don't
know what it looks like.
You're posh, you know this.
You think I eat fruit? Good Lord.
Good point.
I say.
Yeah.
I would have thought you got a sponsorship.